Seeing none. So, you have one that you want Yep. So,
Everybody's in camp.
is there a motion to, on 591? We just did.
Oh.
Yeah, and we all approved?
Including me, even though I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't.
And each mics.
And I'll
So,
move the amendment to 591, amendment 0710S.
Second.
okay, discussion on that. Josh, do we all have that amendment? For some reason, I don't have it in my.
It's right here.
Oh, it's right
Yeah,
there. Gotcha.
So, Mr. Chairman, as you recall, we had some discussion about working on your bill, which seemed to have some issues around procurement and the size of the megawatt issue and so forth. So it seemed, after a lot of discussion with utilities and others, that this would be a way of really making potentially some progress for letting the utilities have a little more opportunity to do some generation and increase battery storage, which I think are the two things that really could help reduce costs in the short term, and we have a lot of other long-term solutions here. But what you'll see is on line 10 of the amendment, under the existing ability to generate up to 6%, this would now go to 10%. Which would make much more opportunity for the utilities without disrupting the separation between generation and transmission from the agreement in the 90s. And also note that it expands the capacity for energy storage projects. It also goes to kind of fuel neutral by striking out Section 3, and then particularly relevant to the issue of battery storage, it says on line 22 where the expected value the economic value, direct and indirect, because that's what storage will do. And so that's what it is, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good step forward and something we can do right now.
and Senator, this would not prevent micronuclear or?
Well, I think the potential, I think in this section, they'd have to be quite small because we're still under the 5 megawatt
Right.
within this section of law. I don't think we can do much about the 5 megawatt this year, but perhaps with a, different legislative view of things next year, we can get at that as well. But I think this is, in a sense, with the 10%, it's a kind of indication and a placeholder for further developments.
Okay. Any further discussions? All in favor of amendment 710?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll move on to pass as amended.
Is there a second by Senator Rosenwald? All discussion. All in favor as to pass as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Consent?
Second. Third. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
And I guess I'll take it out. It is mine, but. Let's do yours. This is an FM, right?
That's what I'm asking. right now.
Yeah, 598. So,
I'll make a motion to reconsider Senate Bill 598.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, I want to move on to pass, and then I want to offer an amendment.
Seconded by Senator Avard.
Yeah, I want to move amendment 0684S. Let me speak to the amendment.
You may.
So we intended to do this last week, but we made a slight mistake when Josh tried to take it to drafting. There was a mistake in the way that we put forth the members of the River Association and the Lake Association. So we have drafted an amendment that just says a director of the River Association with their designee rather than the Rivers Association. And because they don't have the ability to self-appoint. And so we've done, you'll see on line 7 through 10, There's 2 appointments to the Director of the River Association or the designee appointed by the President of the Senate, and then the Lake Association will be appointed by the Speaker of the House, and that would resolve the concern that the committee had about the length of time it takes for a governor to get appointees onto this committee.
That was a quick fix.
Yep.
Good catch. Thank you, Joshua, for following up on that.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there a motion?
Motion to pass as amended?
To a second? Second by Senator Either one. All in favor of ought to pass as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, is there consent?
Consent?
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Want me to
So
take
Pearl,
this up?
take us out?
Sure, I'll take it up.
Okay, good. Is there a flavor of the day? Anybody wants to, okay. One second. My FNs, here they are. Yeah, you wanna?
Yeah, I'm gonna move Senate Bill 596 ought to pass.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion,
I think this was if I may, Mr. Chair,
you may.
I think this was a reasonable request. I had a little concern in the beginning because I didn't realize that smoking was already prohibited in the RV area, because that was my concern, that, when folks are camping in their RV, that's an extension of their home, and I'm always concerned about restricting people's rights in what I consider to be their home, but it's already restricted and there doesn't seem to be any concern, and this just makes sense to extend it to the rest of the beach.
Further discussion, Senator Rosenwald.
Just concerned about whether there will be enough enforcement resources.
Well, it's already being enforced at where the RV area is, and you can't smoke where the seashell is.
Right.
So, and I think it's only one side of the street, right?
Yeah, it's over to the roadway.
So we're gonna have police like walking on the beach.
I think it more gives them a tool, if I may respond.
You may.
I think it more gives them a tool if there's a problem. I don't know that they're gonna run around and if there's nobody out on the beach and somebody's smoking, I doubt they're gonna dispatch an officer to address that. But if there's a concern, it certainly gives them a tool to use.
Thank
I
you.
don't think anybody from Hampton Beach came in and testified one way or another on
I
this.
don't either.
So, we'll send it to the House and let them tease out some more information on, if that's okay.
I may, looking at the fiscal note, you may go to finance.
That's true.
I would hope it doesn't, but we can see.
Well, I'm just looking at the numbers.
I'm hoping it doesn't either.
Well, perhaps you can
We'll add it
suggest
Well, it's under
to the
100,000.
chairman,
I suspect it would be waived because it's under 100,000.
is that its threshold? I thought it was 10.
100,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Further discussion? All in favor of ought to pass?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Consent?
Second.
Second.
All in favor of consent?
Aye.
And Senator Pro, would you like to take this out?
Love to. Smoking if you don't.
Senator Waters, did you have a bill
Yeah, I
on
think 493 is ready.
sign up bacteria?
Yeah, and it's got the amendment, which addresses the issues that were raised. And so I can talk through it again if you'd like, but anyhow, does everybody have that? Do we have that amendment?
Is that 621? Amendment 621?
Yes.
So this had to do with creating villages?
So what it does is do you have copies of the amendment? I don't see that. I have it in my folder.
I have the amendment.
Oh, I have it, excuse me.
Do you have the amendment?
So this is the one that creates a
have-
village district. Does the amendment address that issue?
Yes, what it does is that the issues arose around, the, potential additional powers of the village, districts, and so that section was removed. And, what it, the bill becomes, that it lets the village districts and towns and, cities, plan together for any proposals for grants or action. So it becomes a methodology for them to coordinate, to cooperate or act jointly with other village districts. And then,
Joshua, do you have an extra copy?
Senator
why
Waters,
don't we
maybe-
wait on this? I'm not sure actually this is the right amendment.
Senator Waters, maybe we should hold this. issue
Yeah,
a
let's
little bit.
hold it, because
we're
I
quite
think
ready.
there's some confusion about which amendment we're
Okay.
on, so let's just hold on that.
I had a question about it, if I could. If we're looking at 611, on page 2, line 2, there was discussion that the word mitigate should be changed to treat.
Treat, yes.
Yeah,
I think
I think this is the wrong amendment.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Could you check and see if we received another one? Because this is not the
All right.
right amendment. I looked at it with my eyes. Nope. So,
What was this?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask that we hold 536, the solid waste site evaluation committee bill for a bit longer. I'm still working on that topic.
Okay. And bacteria, solid waste.
536, yeah.
On hold for a bit. Utility increase inflation, just, let's see, that's, how are we doing on 597?
can we wait another week?
We can.
I just, I had talked about whether or not this might be a vehicle for something that the governor was, or others were interested in. But I haven't heard anything about it.
All right, and so 538, how are we doing on this one? We just was sending the net metering eligibility.
This is Senator Lang's bill.
538 is yours.
Oh, excuse me.
Senator Waters, you were going to do an amendment on this that sunsets in 5 years. Did we get to that? I'm already up 538. Yeah.
Could we ask Jim Monahan to come up and speak to it?
Is he here?
Yeah.
Because I have written on the 5-year sunset, was there an amendment that was supposed to be with this?
I know you sent me language. I don't know if it ever got drafted.
Senator Waters, yes, I think a day or two after the public hearing, when Representative Pearl raised the issue of the 5-year sunset, I did prepare an amendment and sent it off to Senator Waters' office. That's some time ago, so
Yeah, I
we
think
may have
we
lost.
prepared it. Did you get that an amendment?
I recall reading the language, Jim. I just don't.
I did share it with,
I don't
yeah.
have the
Well, we
amendment.
didn't say 5 years, we set a date, if you recall, and I apologize, I don't have it with me, but
Yes.
we set the date of
Yeah, I see that. I do
of
remember
2031, which would be 5 years from now.
I did submit
projects.
an amendment on this.
I admit I had to read that several times to understand exactly how you got there.
Yeah, it seemed like the logical way to address 5 years rather than put 5 years in a bill not knowing when it would be signed.
Right,
So,
right. I understand. I understand.
I will, I did indeed submit an amendment. I will check with my aide
Okay,
about it.
all right.
I thought we had it and had passed it along, but maybe we could just wait until the end of this.
All right,
End of our
sure.
committee
So
hearings
maybe
and
we'll
see.
go back to that. You may.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we're saying you get a 20-year term for municipal net metering projects, but then we're sunsetting the statute in 5 years. What happens to the balance of that 20-year?
This is basically a grandfather of the projects that are in proposal and development. So that by that time, the ones who have the 20 years will be able to run out the clock without saying that then we're going to add 20 years after that date.
Is that clear in the language?
I believe,
I review it, I can review it, I'm gonna take a break from here, but the thought was that, it would be for projects that enter the pipeline between now and 2031. And then after 2031, the guarantee of a 20-year term would
that's it.
not be authorized by the legislature.
Okay, maybe we can make sure that that's
I think that it does that as
clear.
written. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But when I go to my other bill, I'll call my aide and see what happened to that amendment.
So the intention is to do it today, but I can check with Jess and make sure that
Yeah,
the
we
right
got it-
version
we got it
amended
and I submitted it. So,
is top of her email. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's it. What are your thoughts on the 518, just for discussion? This had to do with the asset.
I'm sorry, Mr. Short.
Establishing a 518.
Oh, 518.
Yeah. This seemed to be quite complicated, actually. And it seemed that the PUC wasn't necessarily, it had the sanguine testimony about this as well. And it might interrupt,
is this cyanobacteria?
no, 518 is the establishing definition for process of qualified transit asset replacement projects.
Well, Mr. Chair, it's your bill. What would you like to do with it?
I'd entertain an interim study.
I'll move into a study.
For more discussion. I just don't think this is ready for prime time at this time.
Oh, excuse me.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, I'm sorry, just had the wrong title on our exec systems sheet. I got
Oh, yes, it
confused.
does.
Yeah.
and I know it's not an FN, but I just want to clear the deck here, that's all.
That's fine.
Yeah,
So,
so I think that makes sense.
motion of interim study,
Second.
motioned, and all in favor of interim study?
All right,
Any opposed?
consent?
Consent, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Senator Abar takes it out.
I still want to know what kind of woodpeckers.
The big ones.
The pileated,
I don't know.
the really big ones?
I've seen them, but, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Take that one out. Zero consent.
Senator McConkey wants.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, would you consider Senate Bill 595 relative to establish remediation pathway for water systems?
Let's look at it. Yep. Is there a motion?
Move on to pass.
Second,
595?
Yep.
Discussion. Wasn't there like a
There was a-
replacement type of thing?
Were we looking at changing some
Federal.
language to federal? That's what I had.
Right.
Well, I apologize, I didn't.
This, yeah, there was a section that was brought in
Senator Murphy suggested,
to change it to that language, and then
Yeah.
that's kind of like a,
using the federal language.
Josh, we didn't have an amendment for that.
No, but we could do a committee amendment on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said section, for paragraph 4 of
Right.
the EPA citation and adding into the bill.
Do you want to move that as a committee
Move
amendment?
that as a committee amendment.
I will second.
Will that be a replace all, or this section right here?
If you look at the testimony that we received from Senator Murphy, there was a section 4 of federal language that he wanted to add to the bill that he felt clarified it.
It's this section right here, Senator. Here. Oh, yeah, you got it.
So we would add that?
Yes.
And And where do we add it into the language?
I would
Is
say
it gonna replace all?
that wasn't my understanding. My understanding is he just wanted to add it.
Yeah, it was my understanding that he wanted to add it to, make sure that it was in EPA and federal
Yep.
regulation, so that the EPA wasn't going and stepping on DES or DOE in doing the inspections of the water systems. So it wasn't a replace all, it was just adding that language.
And where do we add it? Is it? do
I
we
would say
have-
add it as a new section 2 and move section 2 to section 3.
That sound about right?
Section 2.
Would you prefer one with?
I think it's complicated because it talks about.
No, you're fine.
It talks about when you have to collect, how long you can miss,
Yes, we
and
have
when
a,
you have to collect
we have a
it.
customer. Come on up. Yeah. You saw this language too. You were part of the conversation, and just introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Yes, I'm Brandon Kernan. I'm the administrator of the Drinking Water and Groundwater Bureau. And consistent with Senator Murphy's desires, we did send language on February 11th to his office, to both him, his staff, and as well as you, that would achieve his desired outcome for this bill. I have one copy of the email here. It's just a simple add-on to the existing statute, but it would implement what he's shooting for.
What he suggested in section 4.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, except it's a simple sentence that references the CFR section and the activity that it wants to reference. We worked with our legal counsel at DES to make sure that occurred.
That's cleaner than the way we're trying to do it.
Much cleaner, yes.
Could you provide it to us?
And I'm sure Senator Rosenwald has another question, as if we can
Is
just
this
kind of
a
recap.
replace all?
No,
Yes, I believe what we have provided would be a replace all. It adds one simple sentence saying that section 4, the CFR, shall be part of DES's rules if someone misses a sample.
So,
and
if
these,
I
yes,
may,
your question.
this significantly narrows the scope of the bill by replacing the original language with section 4, because the original bill is any community water system, and the section 4 is just transient, non-community water systems. So it would really, I think, only be campgrounds. Is that your understanding?
Yes, so Senator Murphy was concerned about a campground being impacted by a missed sample. And so as proposed, the language initially wouldn't have addressed a campground, because a campground's not a community water system. It's a transient water system. So the language we provided does include campgrounds, includes non-transient, non-community, and transient water systems. So that's campgrounds, like a fast food place, a place of work, a school, things like that. It wouldn't include community water systems, because that section 4 that he references in the CFRs is not relevant to community water systems. It's only relevant to the non-transient and transient, non-transient, non-community, and transient water systems. So I believe we really addressed what he was shooting for in his legislation with that language in red there.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you've really confused me.
I'm sorry.
As I read it, it applies to transient, non-community water systems.
Right, the CFR does, but the original language of Senate Bill 595 referenced community water systems.
Right.
So this corrects that.
So this is significantly more limited.
Yes, and
And
in
so-
line with the federal regulations, which we have to be. Otherwise, the bill wouldn't mean anything, because even if the state changes its regulations, the federal regulations would still apply.
Okay.
Senator McConkey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, thank you so much for bringing this forward, the time spent. And in interest to my fellow senator, and I would actually like a little more time to read this. I'd like to
Okay.
withdraw my motion.
withdraw this.
and bring it forward.
I- Totally confused.
Okay,
Thank you.
that doesn't happen, but thank you. Thank
No
you. sir.
worries. All right. Going back into the oven. Is there anything that else you want to work on today? It's ready. Participant lodge. That's a hold, that's a hold. That's a hold. Yes, he did. Yep. Is Senator Waters coming back?
I believe he was introducing the
9:30. Okay, so let's go to our next bill, our first hearing.
We have 4 minutes.
sort of 4 minutes.
We still have 4 minutes.
And just a reminder, we're not here next week, it's February break, so the
Right.
next time will be here March 3rd, which is the last day for applicants.
But, yeah, we got 4 minutes, so this is,
Sounds like fun.
well, I'd like Senator Waters here before we exec another one.
That's fine. You want a motion, come out of exec?
Motion to move out of exec by Senator Pearl, seconded by Senator Rosenwald. All in favor? Aye. All right. Take a breath, grab a drink, get 2 minutes.
All right.
Good guy, all right.
Just to confirm, you guys want me to make the amendment for SB 595, which is well, strict language.
The language that he gave to you, right? I mean, if we could do that today, I mean, now or soon, well, no, actually, Senator Rosenwald wants to.
I move that we go back into executive session so we could discuss this.
Yeah, seconded by Senator Avard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, saying none. Senator Rosenwald, you have.
I'm not seeing that we picked up section 4.
No, he's gonna draft the amendment.
Okay. In red. I mean, he refers to language in red. However, this is in black and white. So,
It is just a little faded, and it starts with such rules shall include the option, and I don't know.
is most of this current law?
Yes, you may.
This is the only language right here.
Such rules?
And she asked the question, is this?
Okay. So the only change to current law is for campgrounds referencing the federal code.
It's transient, non-community water system, so that includes campgrounds, but it could be other places like restaurants and things like that. Places where people don't drink the same water every day. A lot of people drink the water, but not the same.
Yeah,
If you don't mind, I'm just speaking in.
Do we have a definition of transient non-community water systems in statute?
Yes, those are well-established definitions in state and federal law.
Okay. Thank you.
So is there a motion to move out of exec because we got a committee hearing coming up?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, seeing none. All right, so we're gonna hear, thank you very much. We're gonna hear from the prime sponsor of SB 475 and recognize Senator Bertzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. For the record, my name is Regina Bertzel, State Senator for District 19, which encompasses the towns of Berry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I am the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 475. This creates a definition for foster homes and makes it clear that animals may be transferred to a foster home when a licensed veterinarian deems it in the best interest of an animal's health, safety, and well-being. I think we can trust the judgment in our New Hampshire licensed veterinarians to determine the proper course of care for animals without reservation, which is why I put it in one of my other bills for comfort dogs. While we should respect the job of the Department of Agriculture to provide oversight to our shelters and rescues, in this case, guidance from the legislature is needed to bring New Hampshire regulation in line with best practices and standards of care that have been proven to benefit animals. And this whole situation has started because back in May of 2027, a cover letter was included with pet vendor license renewals to New Hampshire animal shelters. And they basically made a change, described a change in how they would be enforcing Ag Rule 1705.05. Fostering healthy, pregnant, and lactating animals is not allowed. Foster facilities shall be used solely for medical or behavioral rehabilitation. Pregnancy and lactation are not abnormal medical or behavioral conditions, and therefore they do not require medical or behavioral rehabilitation. Using foster homes to house healthy, pregnant, and lactating animals constitute an extension of space and is not allowed. While I may understand the rationale behind that, being a foster of 7 poodles for Poodle Rescue of New England, I would say that putting a pregnant female or a lactating female with puppies in a foster home is a much more stable environment for that dog and those puppies. And I would appreciate a positive outcome of Senate Bill 475.
Just tell us how you really feel. Senator Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Thanks for bringing the bill in. I know there's been a lot of tension around this issue for some time between some of the rescues and the department, and I appreciate you bringing this forward so we can have the discussion about it. There was some language that the commissioner had asked that maybe we consider. I forwarded that to you, and I do have copies somewhere here of that. Josh, if you want to put that out for anybody in the audience that would like it as well, so that they can look at it. I just would like to get your thoughts on the language that the commissioner had suggested, and I know you've had a chance to review it.
I feel that I understand that the governor wants my piece of legislation. My recommendation would be to probably speak to the governor and see where she is on this. She didn't want any changes, but where his language is very similar to, I think, what I'm putting in, but there are some sticking points with the stakeholders, so I would connect with her.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I thought, if I may.
Yeah.
I thought the general spirit of the amended language seemed to be similar, but just with some clarifying parts on being a New Hampshire pet vendor and a New Hampshire veterinarian, doing the certification, things like that. But I will certainly take your advice, and I'll go have a discussion with the governor before we move forward. Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to make sense to require the veterinarian to be a New Hampshire license. But the change from your original language from an animal shelter facility who's doing the inspection to a licensed pet vendor, they have very different missions and goals. So I'm wondering what you think about the department's suggested language that the inspection be by a New Hampshire licensed pet vendor rather than a New Hampshire animal shelter.
I thank you for the question. I think that there's some of the stakeholders are behind me. I think that would probably be a better question for them because they would be doing the work that is required in here.
Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you, Senator. You are free to go.
Thank you.
Commish?
Good morning. For the record, I am Sean Jasper, Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food, and I am here in support of 475. I am asking for some amendments to answer Senator Rosenwald's questions. Everyone is licensed as a pet vendor. There are categories within there, so that was the purpose of that. So we license pet vendors. So anyone who is an animal, considers themselves to be an animal shelter, is also a pet vendor. This is part of making sure that everybody is on the same page, and we're trying to really get everyone on the same page and have the laws consistent everywhere. So our determination had been that the current law did not allow fostering of pregnant animals. So we were enforcing what we saw as the law. And I will tell you, we had not been consistently doing that because of staffing. The database brought a lot of things to our attention. And I said, well, this is what we're supposed to be doing. So I don't have a problem with the issue of fostering the pregnant animals on a vet's recommendation, which the bill has. So the reason for the amendment, which you have, is foster homes was something that Senator Birdsall wanted to be using, but we also have foster facilities, which may not be exactly the same thing. So again, to have the law be consistent and not us have to have two definitions, we thought it was easier to add that in so that we're now not saying, oh, well, now we need another definition. There's also the issue of just escaped from my mind. The issue of registering the foster homes. I'm asking that be added in. They're already keeping a list of who they're fostering and their inspections, and it would make our job a lot easier if we know going in who they were using and when they were inspected. We find that sometimes that's not the case. Most of our pet vendors, whatever you want to call them in whatever category, are very good about all of this stuff. But there are those outliers that this makes it a little bit more easy for us to regulate and deal with the pet vending trade. There was another issue in there. I mean, other than adding New Hampshire, which I think is good. Oh, adding back in rehabilitation and behavioral issue. So in the definition of 475, that was taken out, which creates confusion from our regulations, which allow specifically for that. So I'm asking that just be put in there, because that should be a reason that animals be allowed to be fostered, and would be in a difficult situation, I think, if that was not in the definition.
So was the governor consulted as far as your amendment?
So
There's
not the latest one, quite frankly, the one that was more expansive. I did present it to her. She said she'd look it over, and then she had someone get back to me and say she wasn't interested. And unfortunately, no further conversations took place. So I took that and said, all right, what do we absolutely need to make this work? And that's what I sent to the committee, and I did send it to the governor's office as well.
Thank you. Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have two questions, if I could. So you said that most of the pet vendors are good, but all of them would be allowed to inspect these foster homes and facilities, even the ones who aren't good, if we use your language instead of the animal shelters. That's my first question. Why should we allow the outlining bad pet vendors to inspect these foster facilities?
So that is how it is currently. Currently in our rules, they are all allowed to do their inspections. We can only get into a home to do an inspection if there is a complaint. So what I'm suggesting is putting what's currently in our rules into the statute. I think that's clarifying language. I would love to have a way to say, well, we don't think you're worthy of this or that, but I think we have to deal with the fact that nobody wants us to go into their homes, and I don't want to go into anybody's home. I don't want to send my inspectors in there. So we deal with them as a whole. And so those who are not following all of the rules and all of the regulations will ultimately either be fined or ultimately they could lose their license. But I don't know of any way to start categorizing and saying, you don't get this. That would bring us into more hearings. We'd have to give them an ability to have more hearings. That is a real time constraint. And I just don't think for this, it would be an issue, because the only real issue is not the foster homes themselves. In my tenure, I don't think we've had any complaints about the foster homes. It's more about record keeping, and this just clarifies that and gives us the ability to know in advance who they're using and when they've inspected.
Thank you. So your last sentence that you're proposing is just about foster facilities being required to register. So you wouldn't even know about the foster private residences.
Well, when we go in to do an inspection, which we try to do a couple times a year, but again, we are probably not going to be able to continue to do inspections of every facility every year. We're proposing to change our rules to at least every 2 years. But when we go in and we do a record check, all the animals that have come into the facility, there's a record of where they are, where they've gone. So right now, we go in and, Fluffy's in foster. So we look at that record. Well, where is Fluffy? Where, how long have they been in there? What was the reason they're in foster for? And that's what we do now. And that's what we continue to do. So again, some of this is just codification of what's in the rules.
Senator Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I know this is, you and I have had many conversations about this topic. There's been a lot of tension in the community, especially in some of the communities that I represent. And I'm happy to see that you dialed this back to a more reasonable level. On this suggested language that you proposed, and I'm going to build off from what Senator Rosenwald was just discussing, your last sentence says all foster facilities shall be annually registered. We don't have a foster facility definition, so what would that
Well,
be?
And that's why in my amendment, and apparently that should say foster
should be
home,
foster home.
home and facility. I'm sorry. I've been going in too many different
Yeah.
directions with too many bills and too much language, and yeah, that should be
Okay.
consistent. And so we are defining foster facility and home in 475 if my an amendment is adopted, so that, as I said, I don't have to go out and create a different.
Yep. Well, I heard you say that, and
Yeah, no,
and
I
wanted to-
apologize, my mistake.
That's
See,
what I was trying to
All right.
get at.
Unfortunately, I was in such a hurry to get here on time, I didn't even print out my own amendment on the way over, before I came
Well,
over.
we appreciate you being here on time, that's for sure.
And I have one more
Yes, you may.
follow-up. Just beyond, so beyond that, everything else in what you're suggesting is either clarifying or currently in rules. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. Yeah, I don't, clarifying New Hampshire, clarifying that the health and behavior is part of fostering. And then the only new real thing in here is just having them submit to us the paperwork saying, here's who we're using. And and
Well,
I would anticipate in that form, it would say date of last inspection.
it is my intention to go up and have a conversation with the governor's
I
office
appreciate
before we
that.
take any action on this. So thank you for you bringing that in.
I see the squirrels going.
Yeah, well, I'm still confused about having pet vendors do the inspection versus animal shelters, which
They are,
in my understanding, those are the places that have the welfare of animals at heart. not the pet vendors.
But
Pet vendors are a business trying to make a profit off of selling kittens and puppies.
we only license pet vendors. That's what the law has us licensing. Within that category, yes, there are animal shelters. However, we don't see any reason why we should say one type of pet vendor gets to do something and another doesn't. That's the issue, because there are other types of pet vendors who have fostered animals. And I'm not somebody who believes just because somebody calls themselves one thing versus another, they should have a different set of rules. I want to be very clear. You know, there's over 34,000 cats, dogs, and ferrets who have had health certificates for transfer in the last 12 months.
Wow.
Most of those animals, and they were imported. Now, you'll hear, well, most of them were born here. That's true, because the mother was pregnant when they came into the state, you know, and so this birthright citizenship, right? You know,
Don't go there.
so we are importing the vast majority of the animals that the shelters transfer. We have had an incredibly successful spay and neuter program, which Texas and Georgia and everybody else down south should adopt. But the reality is that's what's happening, is these animals are coming in. If you just looked at the numbers of strays who were picked up in the state or abandoned in the state, you'd see it. We don't exactly know, but because we do know how many are imported, yeah, the number's pretty incredible.
Oh,
So because you said earlier that most of the pet vendors are good, would it be of value to say that a licensed pet vendor in good standing?
I-
Is
Or
their
we
license,
could-
aren't they still in good standing?
Or
There
are you
is long as,
willing to let the ones who are not good inspect these foster homes? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out.
I think that it just adds to the burden to the department, and we are already stretched to the max. I really don't think that the conditions of the foster homes are the issue. It's more record keeping, and there are some pet vendors who, you know, may have conditional problems, but I think we dealt with all of those in this last year. So I think to a large degree, we're down to record keeping and occasional issues that are relatively minor. It's just literally, we have gone places where they said, well, the animal's in foster. Well, where is it? Well, we don't know, lost track of it. And that's concerning. You know, an animal that's gone in for pregnancy, but it's been there well past the gestation period and never had any, these are the things that we find, but it's not the facility itself that has the animals.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Kurt, he signed up, man. You're here. Yep. He's at 70. That's a good play, by the way. I was in it. Yeah. I played the guy from Maryland. Never mind. Charles Stanton. It's all right.
He's not here.
You recognize, just introduce yourself.
Excellent. I'm Charles Stanton, New Hampshire Humane Society and the Animal Rights Foundation. With sizable reservations, I reluctantly support this bill. I support it because fostering is essential for animals who do not thrive in a shelter environment. I appreciate the positive language changes that have already been discussed and that have already been made. More animal welfare and sheltering expertise at the table during the drafting process would be really helpful, and it would help create a lot of clarity. I will say that as an animal welfare leader, I think that animal welfare and shelter stakeholder input is often largely ignored, which is disconcerting. You all are asking great questions, and I have to say that the language remains confusing, and if organizations are not compliant, those organizations should be held accountable, not the rest of us. The main concern is, for me, is that veterinarians are not the appropriate decision makers for all foster situations. So there are some situations when a veterinarian should not be the person making that decision. I'm honestly supporting the bill because I don't want this to get worse, which often happens when bills continue to evolve, being over-edited. Connected to that general sentiment, our fine state lacks a coherent and comprehensive master plan for animal welfare sector, which results in these sort of piecemeal bills and amendments. We also need a Department of Animal Welfare similar to what other New England states have achieved. To the Environmental and Agricultural Committee, I have submitted numerous letters of support from multiple chiefs of police and a petition with over 200 signatures, including 104 officers and chiefs. The petition also prompted 680 additional letters to the governor and legislators. And it's essentially about over-legislation. So our industry is being regulated well beyond what's happening in other states, so much larger states. So in the state of New York, last year there were 6 bills that moved forward in animal welfare. We had 40 amendments and bills and legislations. This year, 28 currently pending. It's insane. And it's because there's not a master plan. The Department of Agriculture is doing a wonderful job with very limited resources and extremely limited staff. They have referenced in writing that they don't have the capacity to take on additional responsibilities. It was referenced just a few moments ago. All of these additional amendments, all of these bills are adding to that administrative burden, and it also adds to the administrative burden of our organizations.
Please find a seat. If there's no seating, you'll have to wait out in the hall.
Tied to that, municipal services cost my organization $600,000 annually. Towns reimburse $80,000 of that amount. We raise the remaining $520,000, so it does not burden shrinking state and local budgets. We are not legally obligated to absorb that gap. We do it because it's our mission. Efficiency is essential to sustain that commitment. Multiple pending bills add to the regulatory and administrative burdens. The Department of Agriculture, I've already referenced, has stated that their staffing and budget limitations prohibit support of new legislation. Police departments have said they cannot absorb unfunded mandates, and we as shelters oppose excessive legislation because delays result in suffering or death. Your additional legislation, therefore, lacks enforcement capacity. It increases public cost long-term, downstream, and it will not improve outcomes. The solution is a single coordinated master plan developed with direct involvement from licensed shelter operations professionals and experienced animal law counsel. It should not just be executive directors like myself sitting around the table and trying to make decisions with the Federation or the Governor's Commission. It requires shelter expertise from operations and animal care leadership, not executives. So I ask that you consider supporting the idea of supporting this life-saving work with legislation informed by a master plan. Otherwise, excessive and ill-fitting legislation will force us to withdraw all of our services from the 19 municipalities and from the state because it will not be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So just for the record, you got written down opposed, so I'm going to change that to support, correct?
Sure.
Reluctantly, but
If there was a reluctant, I'd love to check that box.
so we don't have an ambivalent. We definitely don't have a reluctant.
You can
so
check both if you'd like. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
just for our record, so that you came in support. Are there questions from the committee? Well then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patricia Morris? Have you seen the amendment too, as well?
I have not seen the amendment.
It's not an actual amendment, it's proposed language.
Thank you. So my name is Patricia Morris. I'm a 50-year resident of the state of New Hampshire, 20 years in Barnstead, New Hampshire, under Senator Pearl's, one of his constituents. I am here on two different positions or representations. I am here representing the Governor's Commission for the Humane Treatment of Animals, and I'm also here representing myself. The Governor's Commission for the Humane Treatment of Animals consists of about 25 individuals who represent organizations. That includes the general public, Senator Waters, a House representative, state police, Chief Police Association, Sheriff's Department, state vet, veterinary associations, ACOs, et cetera. And I can tell you that on Monday, when we spoke about this bill, the commission voted that this ought to pass as written, not as amended, 11 in favor, 4 opposed, and 3 abstentions. I also was authorized to tell you at that time that Governor Ayotte provides her complete support to the bill as written. Myself, personally, I have been practicing animal law in New Hampshire for 20 years, also in Vermont and Massachusetts. I teach animal law at the University of New Hampshire School of Law. I've sat on the Governor's Commission for 19 years, 13 of which I've been chair. I have been, well, we'll leave it there. I also support as written this. I would like to see one addition for the veterinarians. I would like to have a waiver or an immunity clause for them, where if a state licensed veterinarian decides an animal should go into foster, and the animal goes into foster and let's say bites someone because that vet was not aware, it did not like cats or little children tugging at its ears. While I know veterinarians have insurance, that's not the way we want to go here. We want to make sure that they are immune from liability for their decisions to go forward. So that would be my comment. That said, I would love to chat a little bit about the amendment from what I've heard.
Have you got to take a second or just read it? Or have you read it?
Okay, sure.
Oh, that's not
This
it?
is 598. I can tell you what I'm sorry, I can tell you what I've read. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she's got it.
She's got it now. Okay.
Okay. With all due respect and appreciation, I would like to respond to the amendment and Commissioner Jasper's comments, as well as answer some questions that were before the board. The difference between an animal shelter facility and a pet vendor is significant. So unlike the testimony, it does not just codify or expand the current law, it changes it. An animal shelter facility for Senator Rosenwald is a facility, including the building and the immediate area. So an animal shelter facility is a facility. A pet vendor is a person, a firm, a corporation, or other entity that transfers 30 or more dogs or cats or ferrets right now within a specific time frame. So there's a very big difference. So the expansion of this to go from animal shelter facility to pet vendor is spot on. Completely agree with that. They are what is licensed.
Your microphone.
What did you say? The expansion was fine?
Yes, to include this to be pet vendors is exactly what the language it needs to be.
Okay.
Because you're actually going after not going after, but you're holding to this law, pet vendors, the actual person, the entity, not the facility. So it includes what is intended to be included here. Concerns, though, is the word foster facilities versus foster home. They are not the same thing. A foster facility is currently defined, unlike was just testified to. It means a premises which are not in the business of transferring animals because they house animals solely for medical or behavioral rehabilitation when the animals are owned by a licensee holder. So a foster, go ahead.
I would think that's what the commissioner said, right? They're different. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are different, and the hope was to include both of them. And that language was not my suggestion, the suggestion of the state veterinarian assistant.
Thank you, Commissioner.
To the contrary, though, a foster facility, as we know, is subject to unannounced state inspections like a licensee would be. A foster home is a private residence, which would be subject to a state unannounced inspection only based upon a search warrant or probable cause. So there's a very big difference between a foster facility and a foster home. So that is definitely more expansive. there should not be any complaints against a foster home or a foster facility because they are not in the business of transferring ownership. They are in the business of taking care of that animal for whatever reason until that gets better, right? The other concern here is rehabilitation. That is also defined. So we're putting language into this, the overarching statute, right, of which the agricultural rules are written. So we're putting the word rehabilitation in with the amendment, but rehabilitation is defined. And again, it goes back to the process of restoring normal health or behavior through a treatment of a condition diagnosed by a super veterinarian. But it says specifically excluding pregnancy, nursing, basic training, and housebreaking, which is contrary to what the statute is saying. So we're introducing language at the statutory level that's already defined in the agricultural rules. And we need to make sure that those work together. So this amendment is actually much broader and expanding things based upon lower level definitions. And that's very concerning to me to see that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to let you know. I think those are my biggest concerns with the amendment. Again, as written, both the Governor's Commission and myself support it as written. Again, we'd like to see an immunity for veterinarians, but the amendment is just bringing in definitions that are just already defined in the lower rules that specifically contradict best interests of the animal, which is now would be per this language introduced. It still is going back to rehabilitation, saying it is for excluding pregnancy, lactation, and whatnot. So there would be a conflict between the statutes and the agricultural rules.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Commissioner? You heard the testimony, and I saw your body language.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it very much. The problem is that if the fostering is not, does not include rehabilitation, my rules have to change to take that out. As you know, I can only put in law, in the rules, that which is supported by the laws. I think it's been pretty loose that we were allowed to do this without specifically mentioning fostering in the law, but putting fostering into the law now gives me clarity. And your language defines what I can allow fostering for, and without rehabilitation and whatever the other word is, I would have to take that out of the rules. If this passes, regardless, even with my amendments, rules are going to have to change.
Right.
And I'm going to have to take out the not for pregnancy, et cetera, out of that section of rules. So the law has to, the rules have to follow the law.
Right.
And so I will be changing, if this passes, the rules regardless.
Thank you. Okay, with that, did Kirk get back into the room? He did not. Okay. Lawrence, not wishing to speak, but in favor. Hannah, you got both checked off, one crossed out, wanting to speak, but welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Hannah Hurley. I'm the Director of Operations for the Friends of the Manchester Animal Shelter. I'm here today in strong support of SB 475. This bill reflects what veterinary and shelter medicine professionals already recognize as best practice. The Journal of Shelter Medicine and Community Animal Health makes clear that certain animals are especially vulnerable in a shelter setting. Juveniles, seniors, pregnant animals, neonates, and those with underlying medical conditions. These animals are immunocompromised or at heightened risk of disease transmission, and they require greater protection. Puppies and kittens, particularly those who are unvaccinated, are highly susceptible to parvo, distemper, and panleukopenia. The standard of care is to begin core vaccines at or before intake and revaccinate every 2 to 4 weeks until 20 weeks of age. Even with vaccination protocols, housing litters in foster homes significantly reduces exposure risk and disease spread. A congregate shelter environment simply cannot provide the same level of protection. Pregnant, nursing, and neonatal animals require even more intensive care. They need enhanced disease prevention, specialized nutrition, and stress reduction. Difficult births can occur unexpectedly. Neonates and bottle babies, we call them, require round-the-clock feeding and monitoring. Most municipal shelters, including ours, do not staff on-site overnight. If we were to staff work overnight for those situations, it would be undue hardship financially for the shelter. This reality makes foster placement not just beneficial, but medically and fiscally responsible. Foster care also directly improves welfare and behavioral outcomes. Extended confinement in cages increases stress and negatively impacts behavior. For young puppies and kittens, daily gentle handling and positive exposure are essential for normal development. Without it, we see chronic fear, anxiety, and stress that can lead to behavioral issues that can follow them for life. A foster home provides socialization, monitoring, and stability that a shelter environment cannot replicate, and is proven to provide better outcomes for the animals. This bill supports policies that reduce disease spread, improve survival rates, protect vulnerable animals, and promote healthier behavioral development. It aligns with established veterinary guidance and reflects practical, humane, and medically sound shelter operations. Most importantly, it protects the most vulnerable animals in our care while supporting the broader public health and welfare goals of our communities. I respectfully urge you to support SB 475. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Well done. Thank you. Diane Richardson in the ambivalent area. Kind of like a middle of the road. Nice picture of a mountain, though. I see.
Hello, my name's Diane Richardson. I'm from Georges Mills. For more than 30 years, I've been a dog breeder and trainer, as well as managing a large boarding kennel that was licensed to hold strays and rescues, and I was heavily involved with the rescue for 10 years. When I first read this bill, I was really strongly in support of this bill, because when I was in rescue 20 years ago, the fostering of pregnant and nursing dogs and cats was really common. I was a by-phone midwife for foster homes with pregnant fosters, and I created a document to help fosters birth and raise those babies correctly. Puppies and kittens raised in homes are more likely to have a healthy start than those raised in a facility, and are also more mentally ready for pet homes at 8 weeks old. However, upon subsequent reads of the bill, I realized that as written, the bill has far too much gray area. So I will tell you I support the bill's intent, but not as written at this time. The bill should specify that the veterinarian approving the medical, behavioral, reproduction-related reason for use of a foster home should be a New Hampshire veterinarian, not an out-of-state veterinarian. The bill should allow licensed pet vendors with an inspectable New Hampshire facility to place pregnant, nursing dogs and cats into tightly supervised homes until the offspring are old enough to be placed. The bill should not allow any type of pet vendor to utilize a foster home for any reason other than medical, behavioral, pregnancy, or litter rearing. As written, the bill has too much wiggle room that could allow foster homes to be utilized as basic housing, guardian homes, or other non-behavioral, non-medical, or non-reproductive reason, or for non-New Hampshire veterinarians to be making that determination. If this committee can amend the bill to eliminate the possibility for non-behavioral, non-medical, non-reproductive use of foster homes and mandate that the vet needs to be New Hampshire licensed, then it will be a fabulous bill.
Did you see the amendment, Doug? Josh, I got a bunch of them right here.
That would be great.
You like that
Yeah,
language?
that would be great.
Okay. And what do you think about the immunity for veterinarians?
The licensed pet vendor that is choosing the foster home should be responsible for choosing the foster home that suits that animal's personality. They should know the animal's personality that they're sticking into a foster home. If an animal has shown that it may not be good with children, then it shouldn't go to a foster home with children. If it's a young, pregnant, large breed dog, it's going to be protective of its puppies, and it shouldn't go to a home with small children. I think it's the licensed pet vendor's responsibility to vet their foster homes and only place animals into foster homes with the highest rate of success. It shouldn't be the veterinarian's liability at all.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. Question, Senator Rosenwald, with the question.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Did I hear you say that the pet vendor should have a facility that's subject to inspection?
They are. Pet vendors who are licensed have a facility that's inspected. So a breeder will have their facility inspected, a shelter will have their facility inspected, a rescue will have their facility inspected. It's part of being a pet vendor.
Thank you.
Being no further questions, thank you very much for your testimony. Amy does not want to speak, but is in favor. Amy Ross. Is it Karen?
Yes, and Senator, I have to check off speak.
Yeah, it's blank, so I was gonna let you clarify that.
Thank you very much.
Yep. I can't read your last name. What is it?
Fugate, F-U-G-A-T-T.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Karen Fugate. I'm here on behalf of Pope Memorial Humane Society in Dover, New Hampshire, as well as the New Hampshire Federation of Humane Organizations. I am the executive director at Pope Memorial, and I am respectfully submitting testimony in support of this bill, SB 475. Foster homes are a critical extension of shelter operations and a proven life-saving tool, literally a lifeline for animals in need of our help. They allow us as an animal shelter to provide individualized care in home environments when animals cannot safely or humanely remain in a brick and mortar shelter setting. And this is especially essential for animals with medical needs, including those recovering from surgery, animals requiring medication or monitoring, and pregnant and nursing mothers and their litters. These animals benefit significantly from the reduced stress, quiet environment, and close observation that foster homes provide. And the Association of Shelter Veterinarians Guidelines for Standards of Care in Animal Shelters actually states that housing pregnant and nursing animals in foster care provides significant medical and behavioral benefits, including minimizing risk of infectious disease transmission and facilitating more consistent monitoring. We saw this firsthand in 2024 when a pregnant cat that we had placed into foster care went into labor in the middle of the night, which emergencies are always going to happen on a Friday afternoon or on a Saturday at midnight. And that's exactly what happened with this cat, Marigold. She was in a foster home and one of her kittens actually got stuck in her birth canal. And that required immediate attention that, frankly, if she was still in shelter care, we would not have seen because we were not at the shelter after hours overnight watching her. But her foster had all of the guidelines from us as the sheltering facility in charge of Marigold's care. She called the staff that she was supposed to call, and we got her right to the emergency vet. She then had an emergency C-section and gave birth to 8 healthy kittens. Mom and all kittens survived without further complications. So that's just one example of many, many, many examples that I've seen in my time at the shelter of how foster literally saves lives. And while I do agree with defining foster homes and facilities, speaking to the amendments, the suggested language changes here, it would have to be with the understanding, as Commissioner Jasper mentioned, that he would be taking out, or the department would be taking out some of those restrictions about pregnant and nursing mothers. We may want to look at the word rehabilitation, what really that means. But I do agree with much of this suggested language.
Of the additional language?
Yes.
Yes. Senator
Yes.
Pearl with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in today.
Sure.
So do you keep, does your facility currently use fosters?
Yes, we
And
do.
do you keep a list?
We do.
So that, would that be an owner's obligation for you to provide that?
Doing the home inspections and keeping the list and keeping that readily available for the state during our inspections is something we already do, and what I understand most of my colleagues with foster care programs already do.
I would be interested in knowing what the reporting requirements would be, how often, how laborious that would be, what the process would look like. Is it simply sending a list? Is it filling out forms? So without knowing exactly what that looks like, I wouldn't be able to speak to being in favor or not of submitting those homes. But the record keeping is something we're already doing.
Yeah, generally speaking, what we do in situations like this is you heard the commissioner allude to 541A rulemaking. Generally, what we do is we'll give the department the ability to sort of design what that looks like. But did you understand his comment about needing to have the behavioral rehabilitation portion in the statute in order to allow the rules?
I do understand. I guess my question would be, is there a way to better define what rehabilitation means
Okay,
and how limiting that would be?
thank you.
But I understand it needs to be in there because it's already part of the rules.
Okay.
Seeing no further
Thank you.
questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen. Let's see. Savannah. I think it's Savannah.
Good morning. Yes, it is Savannah. My name is Savannah Alcero. I'm the Vice President of Animal and Veterinary Services at the New Hampshire SPCA, and we support Senate Bill 475. I have testimony here, and then additionally, I provided the ASV guidelines that Karen referenced, so I'm happy to pass that to you guys as well.
Just for everybody to know, we're going to be getting kicked out of this this room at 12 o'clock. So if you've got written testimony, I could have said it earlier, but just speak from the heart if you can. If it's a long.
Yep, my testimony would reflect what some of the other people in support have said. The only thing that I think was different or that would bring value to the conversation was having the resource of the ASV guidelines that you'll see on the back. Other than that, the support is there. Foster homes are incredibly important. And in terms of the changes, I think that I agree with what Karen has said as well. I know that there was
amendment.
correct the proposed amendments, yes, and we'll back what Karen has said.
Okay. All right, you got a little more time if you need it. I just reading them. We're going to be running out of time, and I want to be fair to everybody, but I want to be fair to you as well. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and I respect you guys' time, and I don't think that there's additional things that haven't already been said in what I wrote.
Well, it's good that you support it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
No questions at all? Seeing none. Laverne.
I think it's Lauren.
Is that Laverne or Lauren?
Lauren.
See, I'm just like, I need to have a teacher start reading these.
I can.
Sorry about that. I have issues.
Take twice as long.
Lauren, my apologies. You're right.
No worries. Lauren Martin, I'm a resident of Bow, New Hampshire. I've lived here for 11, 12 years now, and I volunteered at Live and Let Live Farm for the past 5 years. And I'm here to voice my support in support of Senate Bill 475. I think that it's really important that that veterinarians caring for the animals are the ones who decide whether or not the animal should be placed in foster care, whether or not that's in the best interest of the animal. That should be up to the veterinarian, right? And so strongly in favor of the bill as proposed. I'm a little bit concerned about the language in the amendments that were proposed by Commissioner Jasper, and specifically the requirement that fostering the animal is necessary for medical or behavioral rehabilitation, like the necessary language that's been added in. Frankly, I'm not really sure what that means, and it seems like it's going to create ambiguity, right? Because the way that, so prior to the amendment of Agriculture Rule 1705, fostering was traditionally permitted for pregnant animals, right? The rules permitted fostering for medical or behavioral rehabilitation, and everyone interpreted that to include pregnancy and then recently the Department of Agriculture changed their mind about that and decided that pregnancy was no longer a medical rehabilitation. Was no longer, that pregnancy was no longer a medical condition such that fostering wouldn't be permitted for pregnant animals. That seems like a little bit surprising. And so they've now amended the rule to specifically exclude pregnancy from what would be considered a medical condition. And so I'm concerned that if under the proposed amendment, that if they say that fostering has to be necessary for medical or behavioral rehabilitation, that language is going to now somehow permit them to once again exclude pregnant animals from foster, or at least set the threshold so high that there could be disagreement between the commissioner over what's necessary, right? What's medically necessary for foster, and the veterinarian that's overseeing the care of the animal. And respectfully, I think that it should be up to the veterinarian, and it should be up to the pet vendors and the shelters to determine what's in the best interest of the animals that they're taking care of, as opposed to, potentially just creating the potential for a fight between the Department of Agriculture and the shelters as to what's in the best interest of the animals.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Oh,
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it. So you really want to see us make it clear that it's the veterinary that has the controlling interest of the placement of the animal, and really not leave it up to a debate by the department.
Yeah, because honestly, I think that it's just going to create more, for lack of a better word, drama, right? Between the more language that we have in here that's susceptible to multiple interpretations. It's just going to create the potential for more disputes between the shelters and the pet vendors and the Department of Agriculture, and nobody really wants that, right? We all want animals to, we want what's in the best interest of the animals.
All right, so we'll make sure we get that clarification. Then I don't, the way I read this, sorry if I may.
yeah.
The way I read this, I think it's pretty clear that the decision, according to this language, would be by the veterinary. It's really not debatable by the department. That's the way I would read this, but
Okay.
But I will make sure that we look at that and make sure that I'm accurate, okay?
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then the one other comment that I had was in terms of the requirement for foster facilities to be registered with the department. That's also not abundantly clear to me. It sounds like foster homes and foster facilities, which aren't separately defined. So again, not clear what those two things are or what the difference is between them, but they would themselves have to independently register with the Department of Agriculture by filling out some sort of form. And I'm not sure if there's a fee associated with that, but again, just seems like there's potential for disputes,
Okay.
if you will.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Well, we'll get couple more speakers here. Commissioner, can I have you come up just real quickly, just because I saw a bubbling head. Yes, I know. I was watching your head too. I was watching you. Listen, I'm everywhere, so.
So I think the language is very clear. It is deemed by a licensed New Hampshire veterinarian that fostering the animal is necessary. There's no role for the department in here.
So no debating at all.
There could be a time when we might talk to the veterinarian to understand his decision, but there's nothing in here that allows us to negate that at the time.
Right. And that'll be put in rules.
Yeah, and
Yes.
on the last line, that should say, because we're defining foster home, as I've said, it doesn't even need to say and facilities, it just should say all foster homes shall be annually inspected. That's the only thing we need
Annually
to.
registered, not
Right.
inspected.
Right, I'm not inspected, excuse me. I can't see with my glasses and I can't see without my glasses.
I don't want to start that.
Night.
fight.
No.
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes.
I
Senator?
thought you were gonna get away from me.
Oh, see, I can't see without my glasses. So.
Yeah, really. I'm another bald guy up here. Anyhow, I just wanted to clarify, because of some of the other comments, that the amendment you're proposing does include the best interest of the animal's health, safety, and well-being, including pregnant or lactating animals.
That's right. We're leaving it up
And
to,
that would govern the rulemaking, wouldn't it?
Yes.
that would, and, it's broad, and I understand some people don't want it as broad, but leaving it to the veterinarian to decide,
Thank you.
we believe is the right thing to do.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
have all of us set on rules? I know I have, you have. Have you?
I have not said.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
so
yes.
two of us
Lucky
have sat
you.
on rules, so
Lucky you.
there is, with you,
I was there.
with oversight. So we actually make sure that, when the rules are made, we have oversight and you know the conversations.
And I did my penance on that
Yeah.
many years ago by serving 2 terms on rules.
I've done a number of them myself. Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it. Mary? Yes, that one.
That's right. Good morning. I'm here today to implore you to vote yes on SB 475. It's imperative that pregnant dogs and cats be allowed to be in a foster home. Their maternal protection mode and hormonal changes can be very stressful for them in a shelter environment. The need for a protected space is great, and crowded, loud shelters add stress to the burden of pregnancy. Vulnerable kittens are very susceptible to upper respiratory, and they have a better chance of survival being in a foster home. I did read in the Concord Monitor that the Department of Agriculture is considering adding a fee onto the burden of rescues. Shelters and rescues are already overwhelmed financially with the constant flow of unwanted animals and the expensive vet care they need while in the care of the rescue. With vet care projected to continue to rise through 2030, this is the last thing rescues need. Thank you.
It is my understanding, just by the nodding of the head, that the fees are not being in consideration. So,
Good.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you
Questions from the committee? Well done. Thank you. All right, here we go. Teresa or Tessa? Starts with a T. T-E-R something S-A. Paradise? It says you're in support and you want to speak.
Oh, okay,
That's what friends do.
okay. I'm Teresa Paradise from Live and Let Live Farm Rescue, and I'm in favor of SB 475. Foster homes are very important for pregnant and lactating animals to be safe, socialized, and monitored pretty much around the clock. Our facility, just for instance, we had a pregnant dog that was in a foster home. My phone is on 24/7. The fosters will text or call me if needed, no matter what time it is. Christmas Eve, 2 years ago, the foster called and said, we thought everything was good with this mother, and it was. And then she started giving birth and could not. We had an emergency, Deerfield vet is our emergency vet, got the dog there. The puppies were too big for the dog to give birth. Had an emergency C-section and saved her life. That baby would have been stuck in there and died in there as well as the mother if we didn't have her in a foster home being watched at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. It's very, very important that lactating dogs and pregnant and cats, any animal really, have a family monitoring them and socializing them.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Questions from the committee?
So we're totally in favor of SB 475.
We gathered that. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And our
No
final-
questions? Okay.
No question.
Thank you so much.
And our final, it looks like the same handwriting. Maybe not. Sarah Proctor? That's not your handwriting? Okay. Well, you got similar handwriting. Thank you. So,
I'll be quick.
thank you.
I'm Sarah Proctor. I'm a veterinarian at Hope Memorial Humane Society Dover. And I didn't intend to speak on this, but my colleague Jordan Gagney, who's a vet at Salem Animal Rescue League, couldn't be here. So I think she submitted written testimony. It was really long, and I'm not going to read it. It was very similar to what other people have said about why they support this bill. So I guess I just want to speak to that. She also now serves as the Humane Society liaison for the New Hampshire Veterinary Medical Association, which was my position just prior to her. So I think we can say that the VMA would be in support of this as well.
And the amendment, thoughts?
Yes, and I think her testimony that she just sent to me, and I think she sent to all of you, was in favor of the amendments and the changes that were made.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Seeing none? Well, thank you very much. We're going to close the hearing on this, and we're going to open up the hearing very shortly to SB 535. And we'll wait for the prime sponsor. Well, it's up to you. I'm voting for you. Whenever you're ready, Senator.
All right. Thank you. It's great to be in front of the committee. And for the record, my name is Senator Howard Pearl, representing District 17. I reside in the beautiful town of Loudon, and I am here today to introduce Senate Bill 535, defining a residential breeder and imported animal for purposes of animal transfers. We've had a lot of great discussion on the last bill, and I think what this bill would do sort of goes along with what the whole theme of what we're hearing is, it's important to get these animals in the right homes and coming from the right environments so that when they're placed in their permanent homes, they are really good animals for the, and they do well in the environments. And as you heard the commissioner mention on the last bill, one of the things that the department doesn't really want to be going into homes and, and doing those inspections. And we had changes many years ago, based on real conditions that were problems, that we really tightened up our, our transfer limits and the creating of these pet vendors. And now that we've gone on a few years and we've put in place the database so that the department can track and do a good job of really seeing what's going on in the animal transfer community. It's time that we now start granting just a little bit of relief in an area where the department has determined that it is not a problem. These aren't the people that are creating the issues. And so by putting this residential breeder definition in place, it would just allow the department to grant a little relief on home inspections if they chose to, or other areas of the pet vendor rules, which might be onerous for a very small breeder. And so that's the first part of what this bill does. The second part is the commissioner had asked me to define imported animal, which as you heard him reference on the last bill, that some of these animals are coming in pregnant, and he just wanted to make it clear that when the animal comes in pregnant, that the babies from the mom were still considered an imported animal and had to follow those regulations. So that's in essence what this bill does, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee. Senator Waters and then Senator Rosenwald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to clarify. I mean, we spent a lot of time on these numbers over many years,
Yes.
particularly under Senator Bradley's impetus with several bills, and 30 seemed a really reasonable number because of a lot of concerns over what had happened in other incidents, and so 50 does seem like a kind of a reach. And I just had a couple questions related to that.
Sure.
Does residence here, primary residence, include a barn, or is it just the dwelling?
Just give me a line. Oh, on line 4, I'm sorry.
Within their primary residence.
No, this would be within, not a detached kennel. This would be within their home.
Yeah. So someone who may have up to 30 dogs in a barn would not be allowed.
That's correct. This is their primary residence. This is their home.
This is a recent case we've been hearing about in the Governor's Commission on Cruelty to Animals around that. And then secondly, and maybe the commissioner can speak to this, but kind of enforcement do we have to know whether or not how many pets are being transferred and whether they have their health certificates?
Sure. I will let the commissioner speak to it, but that's all right. I mean, we put the database in place, and I think in the conversations I have had with the commissioner, that has really helped them to get a true snapshot of what's happening in the animal placement community.
Senator Rosenbaum?
Thank you. It's sort of a similar question about the number 50. I don't know anything about dog or cat gestation, how long they gestate for, how many babies are typically in a litter. What does 50 look like on the ground? Does it involve generally X number of mother dogs or cats? Or
Sure.
X numbers of litters per year?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I do not profess to be an expert in this. I mean, I know
Oh,
you
come
can
on,
have.
you are.
I was a cattle farmer, sorry. They have
That could
one,
be up
maybe
to 5
two.
dogs, just for 13 to 10 dogs apiece.
Yeah, I mean,
we
they,
heard about 8 cats from Marigold.
yeah. I mean, there are litters that can exceed 10, 12, 13 at times. I don't know that that's common. It depends some on the breed of the dog and the cat too. So, I mean, there are some differences there. Again, it's not my area of expertise, but I am aware of litters that have exceeded 15. So, I mean, ideally at 50, you'd likely, I don't, in most cases, you probably wouldn't be exceeding more than 5 or 6 breeding births in a year. You know, when I mean, and different dogs or different parents.
5 or 6.
Yeah, I would say that you'd have no more than 5 or 6 litters, I guess. And you could hit that. I mean, there again, it depends on the animals.
That's a lot of puppies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could I follow up?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it reasonable or healthy for a dog to have 5 litters per year?
Oh, not a dog, 5 different moms.
5 different
Yes,
dogs?
yes. So you
That's
might.
a lot of dogs.
And no, I would hope. No, they couldn't do it. It wouldn't be physically possible for 5 in a year. But
Maybe a rabbit, but not a dog.
yeah, the rabbits can get to 3, I guess. I've seen that. But these aren't unreasonable numbers. And again, I want you to talk to the commissioner and ask. This came from conversations with him about where the problem issues were coming. Listen, our residential breeders are very. They're just good members of our communities. They're filling a service to people who are looking for primarily purebred dogs. Is what they're looking for in a lot of these cases, and they're really serving a niche. And the other thing that this would do is it would get all of these breeders to be registered as pet vendors, whereas currently, right now, they don't necessarily have to be if they don't exceed that 30 number. But if they want to be considered to do this, it would cause them to be registered. So,
thank you.
And I think that would help benefit the department on their record keeping as well.
Seeing no further questions.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner? There's Kurt. Hey, you signed up? No, no, you've already signed up twice. I'm applauding you. You don't? Okay.
Good morning, and as far as I know, I'm still the commissioner.
You are.
We are in support of 535. I think that, as Senator Pearl spoke to, these people are working within their home. 50 was the number that used to be required, and we think this is a reasonable place for people who are not traditional pet vendors. I did catch an error in Roman 7, line 10. Imported animal, as it's written, it would only include the offspring and not the animal itself. So it really should say, I think, something to the degree imported animal means the animal imported into the state as well as the offspring. So other than that, I'll try to answer any questions. I can say that the number of kittens or puppies is going to vary greatly by breed, but we would expect that this would be facilities that probably have no more than 5 dogs or cats. Otherwise, it could easily exceed that number.
So the number was 50 at one point before?
Yes, for the whole trade, and that was lowered to 25, I believe, and then that became a big issue when we went back to, we went up to 30.
Yeah.
And why did we go down to 25?
You would have to ask Senator Bradley that.
Jeb, are you listening? Probably is. Senator Waters.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, just on that point, I mean, wasn't it due to really a sequence of very egregious abuse cases?
That
That led to many reforms, including this one.
And I think that 25 was probably a number that seemed reasonable, but then because of litter sizes, it captured a lot of people who had not intended to be captured into this. You know, and what we're hoping for ultimately is that every animal that is transferred will be registered in the database. There is no fee for that. We have no bills or anything that would require a fee to that. But I would tell you that pet vending is very expensive to the state coffers. Just the database itself is about $250,000 a year to maintain. The staff, we have, you know, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars of staff time, and our total income for pet vending is about $15,000 a year. So.
Senator Waters, the question?
Were you all done? I didn't.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, you know, I'm on the Governor's Commission on Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and we had considerable discussion at our last meeting on several instances where it seems that people were pushing the boundaries of being residential breeders, and particularly there seem to be indications that some of these breeders are not getting the health certificates, and if they privately transfer, that we have no way of knowing, because it's the health certificate request, is it not, that lets you know somebody's got animals?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so there is a possibility that, you know, there are people out there, and they may continue to do that, to quietly do it, because they're exceeding 30 right now. Hope is that this is a number that people exceeding 50, it's going to set off bells and whistles, and those are under, hopefully would, you know, say, all right, now I don't have to worry about it. I can do this the right way. I don't have any evidence of that, but, you know, we know human nature, and I think people who are transferring more than 50 are probably on a regular basis advertising and making it well known that they're doing this. People under that, maybe under the radar, and this hopefully would bring them into compliance. And
so, if I may follow up, but we really have no way of actually knowing whether someone is not getting health certificate or is transferring more than 30, and now it could be 50. We have no way of knowing that if they're not informing you.
That is correct. I mean, often because of the way people advertise, we are alerted to the advertisement, and we may look into that situation when we find that, hey, here's somebody who's advertising for sale, and we're not getting any certificates, and that's. And
one more question, and Senator Pearl has a question.
If I may follow up on it, another issue that has come up with some police departments who don't have an animal control officer is that they may be made aware of potential violations, but they have without an animal control officer, they don't feel they are able to do anything. Is that, this was a rather large community not far from here that this was offered.
I've got to tell you, I think that to a large degree that may be just pushing things off, because I think the chief can actually designate any one of his officers as the animal control officer. You do not have to have a separate employee to have an animal control officer, and I am sure that in most small towns that is true.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I think there's a little misconception, and I want you to help clear it up. We're not creating a new situation where we're moving the number to 50 as far as registering as a pet vendor. They still have to register as a pet vendor at 30, correct?
You said that, and I don't have the total statute in front of me. I don't think that they do, but they would still have to put in a certificate of transfer. So I think the idea, if I'm remembering, and I think what it does is that it's a new category of residential breeder.
Yeah.
And, don't quote me on this, but I believe that they don't become a pet vendor until 50.
I'll have to check again. I thought the way we designed this was that they were going to be registering as a pet vendor. This just gave you the opportunity to relieve like the home inspections so that you didn't have to be going into their home to inspect.
Well, I think it does both, and I mean, frankly, if they're not registering, I'm fine with that, because, I don't think really, if we're not going to be doing the inspection, we don't need to be cluttering things up with that, because they would still hopefully be getting the certificate of transfer.
Okay, I'll double check on that. 'Cause
Okay.
That was the way I thought we had
All
designed it
right,
originally, but let me confirm.
That was a day and a half ago, so.
It was several months ago we
Yeah.
had this conversation. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Charles? Still got two more bills. Animal bills bring in a lot of people.
Hi again. Charles Stanton, New Hampshire Humane Society, Animal Rights Foundation. We've met before. It's much briefer. I need to acknowledge that 475 grouping all of us together is the idea. Here we are creating a different definition, is basically what I'm saying. Compare what we talked about earlier. All pet vendors are under the same umbrella. This is doing something different. It feels contradictory to me. That said, what you just discussed about not increasing the limit, that's been an ongoing misinterpretation among the animal welfare community this entire time. The bill is poorly written. So it needs to be clarified, because I would say 20 of the emails that I've received from other animal welfare professionals have misinterpreted this as being a change in the limit. That's a problem. So if the bill is that confusing for us, it makes sense that it would be confusing for others. I do believe the state needs to lower the maximum number of animals allowed in non-licensed operations. I felt that way since I moved here in 2019. There are a lot of reasons for that I won't go into, because there are others who want to speak. If people are quietly exceeding 30, as was referenced earlier, they can also quietly exceed 50, right? So we continue pushing that limit up. Why would we allow it to be higher? More importantly, how does it make sense? There's already been reference this morning to essentially, where does your data come from? There is no data to substantiate this change. So my question would be, why are we continuing to overregulate licensed compliant shelters when the department has already referenced, Department of Agriculture has referenced that it is overburdened, and this distracts from the egregious activity of unlicensed and non-compliant groups. You already asked about animal control. Correct. There isn't nearly enough. There are enforcement gaps at literally every level. So Department of Agriculture, Animal Control, and your shelters are also maxed out. We are. We're doing as much as we can. That's why there needs to be a coherent master plan that I referenced earlier for the animal welfare sector. Otherwise, excessive regulation will force us to end all municipal contracts to our 19 municipalities and to the state. Thank you for your time.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your testimony. Patricia Morris?
Good morning again, Senators. Thank you, Senator Pearl, for bringing this forward. Again, my name is Patricia Morris, 20-year resident of Barnstead. In my role as practicing animal law, I've been before the Department of Agriculture 40, 50 times in the past decade on informal and formal hearings regarding interpretation of rules and statutes. I think Charles before me just brought up a great point, which is last night I spent so much time trying to stop the misconceptions of this bill, and I think Senator Pearl just brought that up. This bill is written, creates a new definition, which is not just a breeder, not a commercial breeder, because a commercial breeder is already defined in 466(8) as someone who does 10 or more litters a year and 50 or more puppies a year, but it creates this residential breeder, which is mentioned nowhere in the statute, so don't know what a residential breeder is going to do. But what it doesn't do is take it out of the purview of a pet vendor, right? They would still be required, because it does transfer more than 30 dogs or cats or ferrets a year, to be licensed as a pet vendor. And that's what this bill does, and that was the confusion last night between the current pet vendors. Referring to what Commissioner Jasper said in 475, why could one pet vendor do something just because they call themselves something different? Why should they have a different set of rules? So we have pet vendors, we have commercial breeders, and we have residential breeders now. The goal of 437 specifically is to provide animal health regulation to focus either on the conditions that pose a threat to public health or would require regulatory intervention to protect the economy of the state, or both. I understand the unfunded mandates that are being put on the Department of Agriculture. All these bills that are produced, we're trying to move inspections out 2 years so we can make them now inspect boarding facilities. We're trying to have them do this and this and this. So I understand that crunch, and we're asking them to do something they can't do, which means something's going to fall through the cracks. And Commissioner Jasper already stated earlier, specifically, we are not consistently enforcing their interpretation due to our resources of these bills. And that is a huge problem. And that's why I go before them so much in hearings, because it's not that the pet vendors don't want to comply. They don't know how to. In one hearing specifically, we were talking about the definition of a litter because my client was written up for being over her maximum amount of animals allowed in the facility. And at the same time, the assistant state veterinarian and a vet tech both defined litter as two totally different things. One was if it was under 8 weeks, it was just one with the mother. And if it was over so many weeks, it was each puppy plus that. We also have had a recent issue with, of course, can pregnant animals go into foster or not? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we used to get guidance. We would reach out to the Department of Agriculture and say, can you please provide us guidance on how you're interpreting and how you're enforcing that? We're not getting that now. And this confusion already over this bill just shows that it needs to be drafted more clearly. And to give you an example, specifically, not only would whether or not they're subject to any of 1700 as far as the pet vendors and what they're supposed to do for facility sustenance and care, it's trying to define imported animal, which isn't right now used in any statute. But from what I understand from Commissioner Jasper, it would be the animal imported and their offspring, which makes sense, right? But how does that play with all of 437.8, which talks about animals that are imported from out of state? The definition of import isn't defined. Import, if you go to a dictionary, which a court will do, if they say, what's an imported animal? And I will say, an imported animal means the offspring of any animal which was imported into the state while pregnant. Imported into the state from where? Does it matter? I just think we need to use consistent terminology. So for example, in 437, we're talking about you shall not ship or bring into the state any animal. They're intended for transfer entering the state. We need to use the word import. If we're going to define it, we need to use vocabulary that is the same. So again, I'm looking at the bill as written. We're doing another classification of 30, then 50 and more. So we have our pet vendors, which still include the residential breeders, which now are going to have commercial breeders, which are 50 or more, and they all are privy to different rules and regulations. And it just doesn't make sense when it comes down to it. The bottom line, we're here to protect the citizens of our state and their household pets and the animals that they consider their family. So again, I would vote to oppose this as written.
Senator Pearl with a question.
Well, thank you for at least understanding the part of the bill the way I do. I mean, that's the way we drafted it.
Yep.
Was that it still fell under the pet vendor rules. And again, when we made some real wholesale changes, as you were aware, many years ago, based upon conditions that needed to be done.
Yes.
You know, we had some bad situations, and then we've put in place the database specifically. It's really helped the department to move forward and understand what's happening, as I stated. But what we're looking at in this is very similar to the way I view like the foster homes. We're not looking to have the state inspect those because it's not necessary to do so. I think we all agree that it falls under the pet vendor itself, that they're fine, because we don't want the department going into people's private residences.
Right.
And, and that's the concern. So I guess the goal of this bill was to make sure that we allowed these breeders that aren't a problem to the department. They've determined they're not. The commissioner and I had extensive conversations about where do our problems lie, where do they not lie. And we're starting to be able to use the technology that we put on to grant a little bit of relief. There is a question here, I promise. To grant a little bit of relief toward those areas where, when we make all-encompassing rules and laws, that we sometimes drag people in harder than we intended to, and we don't want to do that. And in the case of the fosters, we don't want to do that. And I think the residential breeder, by establishing that, we're taking a small niche of folks that we pulled in that we didn't want to drag in necessarily, that weren't the problem. But would you agree that, you know, essentially what this is trying to do is just create a little bit of relief for that small section of breeders that they're still registering as pet vendors because they hit the 30 trigger threshold, but they're not large vendors, you know, in a case of several thousand animals a year that they're transferring as some of the other pet vendors are, that this is a small niche that's servicing a group of specific buyers that are really, again, mostly looking for purebreds. Would you agree that this would just allow a little relief perhaps from the home inspections? by doing that?
I do. And Senator, I agree that there is a very big difference between pet vendors who are importing all their animals for sale and this, which you're looking at people who are breeding. I bought my black lab from a commercial breeder. But I do disagree with the fact that there's no problems with those. If Chief Suckling was here, he would be the first one to talk to you about the labs and the German Shepherds up in his territory that were with a commercial breeder or a breeder that resulted in 2 horrible, horrible cases. I've been involved in several breeders. Now, there's always going to be the bad ones, right? We don't ever want to cater the bill to the bad ones, but I completely and wholeheartedly agree that there is a very big operating standard, and there's also a very different risk for the commercial breeders who are owning and breeding in-state and those who are importing from out of state. And I would also agree that if there's some wiggle room, I do agree with that specifically. I just don't think that the language I think the language here needs to be drawn out a little bit more.
Would you follow me? Would you be willing to provide me with what
Happily.
you feel would sort of achieve the goal that we're looking to do?
Happily.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Diane
all. And
Richardson?
thank you, Senator Pro.
You're very welcome.
Diane?
Oh.
Hello, I'm still Diane from George's Mills, and I am a small number dog breeder, dog trainer, dog rescue worker, boarding kennel manager, 30+ years. And I support SB 535 in defining the residential breeder and imported animals. And I'll tell you why this bill's needed. When New Hampshire switched from licensing New Hampshire commercial breeders, which was 10 or more litters or 50 or more puppies, whichever came first, and pet shops and rescues and shelters all together as a pet vendor, it lumped everybody that transfers 30+ into one category. And I know Pat mentioned that commercial breeder is still listed a couple places in the online rules and regulations. That's oversight. I mean, an oversight, it just hasn't been removed yet because they replaced all of that with a pet vendor. But one segment of this demographic was lost in rules, and that's the residential home breeder who breeds in their house that transfers 30 to 50 dogs annually. And as Howard and Pat said, they still will have to have a pet vendor license if they hit 30+. These are the breeders that we tell people to buy from. The breeders that raise their puppies and kittens in their house. The breeders that make sure their puppies and kittens are well adjusted to a home environment versus a kennel. By lumping these mid-range breeders into a pet vendor category, we basically told them that raising mentally well-adjusted puppies in homes with rugs and furniture and children were no longer important because we require them to follow AGR 1700. And AGR 1700, while perfect for rescues and large commercial breeders and shelters, doesn't work for homes because everything has to be sterilizable. There's no rugs, no furniture, no dog beds. The puppies and kittens can't hang out in the living room and watch TV and interact with other pets. They have to be in their inspectable facility. For these mid-range residential breeders, this turned out to be catastrophic because the choice was to transfer less animals or raise them in a commercial environment. And SB 535 corrects this error, enables the mid-sized responsible breeders to continue to raise their puppies and kittens in a manner that will make for well-adjusted family pets, and allows the Department of Ag to establish an inspection criteria around a home environment versus 1700, which is a commercial environment. I would caution that care should be taken that this bill not be applied to rescue groups importing pregnant dogs into New Hampshire. Those are handled, as Howard mentioned, in the previous bill. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Seeing none. Well done. Karen, you didn't say whether you want to speak or not? Not this time? Okay, but you are opposed to this bill. So our final speaker is, well, actually, we don't know. Lorna? No, I have final, well, Lorna Ross. Is there a Lorna Ross in here? But you didn't say whether you want to speak or not. And you didn't sign up? Okay, you are our final speaker.
I need the commissioner to come back up.
Okay.
Good, it's still morning. Good morning. I'm Raylyn Bradigan, Executive Director of the Upper Valley Humane Society. I just have a couple of questions, I guess, as we're listening to this, particularly with the last testimony. If it is agreed upon that these puppies being raised at breeders do better if raised in a home with couches, carpets, tables they can learn not to climb on, then it doesn't make sense to me why for 475 we're trying to discuss more specific regulation as to who can go into a foster home or not. So if a home is better for a pet behaviorally or medically, these two arguments contradict each other, to my understanding.
It's okay. Keep
I
going.
was checking for nodded
You look-
bobbleheads. Okay. And then similarly, as far as increasing the number from 30 to 50, it was said that we trust that people are going to make good decisions as far as breeders as to what's responsible to have in their home, almost doubling the number of pets that they'll have over the course of a year. But with 475, we're saying that we don't trust veterinarians to make those decisions and we need to have more specific rules. So I just don't understand kind of where those two different mindsets come from. I know that with the amendments to 475, that the wording is being redacted, or but the mindset of why both of those were proposed doesn't make sense to me as far as quality of life of pets, if that's what we're getting at.
Senator
Sure, thanks. Thanks for coming in. So I think we generally ask questions, but I'll give a little bit of an explanation if you'd like. Obviously, the bill's brought in by two different sponsors, dealing with two different situations, and but there are some similarities, and I agree with you. And certainly, we do recognize, and I think you'll see the committee and the legislature is recognizing that there are times where it's important for these animals to be more in a residential setting or under different care than it is just in the, the typical pet vendor situation of crates and defined areas as is required, impervious services and all of that's required in 1700. And one of the vast differences between that this bill with having a residential breed would be they're not allowed to import any animals. These are literally homegrown animals, and they're typically from breeding lines that they're trying to promote, again, mostly in purebreds. That is primarily where you're going to see this would apply. And it's a very small group of breeders that haven't been an issue for the state overall. There may always be some case, but generally speaking, these breeders are very they're very conscientious, and they're very devoted to the breeding lines that they're working with. And that's, as we've moved forward, we're trying to find where we need to tailor these laws. Anytime we start making changes, as we did, we made a wholesale change many years ago that really tightened things up. And sometimes it tightens it up too much in some areas. I sit as the chair of ED&A, Executive Departments Administration. We've done some similar things in licensure with professions, and as we go forward, we have to start finding ways to tailor it and make it work better to not be too onerous. And I think the last bill we talked about is the same deal. We don't want to be too onerous on our rescues about placing animals into foster homes when it's necessary, because there are times that it's good. And I think we're trying to get to what you're looking for is in that bill, we're trying to get to where the veterinaries who are really responsible for the health care of the animals and the rescues, they're all have the best interest of the animals, generally speaking, and the same with these breeders. And we're trying to find different ways that we can make this all work for all of them. I hope that sort of answers your questions.
Sort of, yes.
Sort of,
That's the spirit of what we're doing.
yes.
Sort of? Oh, no, what he's, like, just kidding. That's fine. And this came up in the last hearing that I spoke with Commissioner Jasper was, I understand it's really difficult for management to say, this is a problem, let me propose a solution without talking to the team saying, this is the problem, what can we do as a group to resolve it? But I do hope, especially as much time as we're spending, not just this morning, but over months, discussing ways to resolve this. As it was explained to me last, the 475 is supposed to resolve veterinarians and rescues not having frequent enough contact with these animals. If that's the problem proposed, why can't the Fed say, this is what we propose as a solution?
I'm sorry, why can't who say that?
But I don't think you meant that.
Sorry, the New Hampshire Federation of Humane Organizations. So
Oh,
that
okay.
Fed, not.
We're thinking federal government.
Sorry, I went the wrong direction.
Less,
there.
less moving, for sure.
Thank you
Because,
very much.
as mentioned before, it's a bit arguing semantics, and we can be back in a month or a year saying now this one thing can or can't be allowed.
Yeah, there'll be some hashing out during rules and stuff, and as the process has been made, so there is oversight. That's why I mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Sure.
But we're gonna ask the commissioner if he can come back up, but Senator Waters has a question for you, unless you have something else you'd like
That's
to
all.
say.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Yes, sir.
And with that, and you'll be our final speaker with the commission.
Thanks, Commissioner. So I was looking at 437-1 definitions, and this adds 6, which has the residential breeder. But I wondered if there's a problem in that if we do this, we are not also amending 437-1-4, because there it says pet vendor means any person, firm, corporation, or entity that transfers 30 or more dogs, 30 or more cats, 30 or more ferrets, or 54 or more birds, and then it goes on and on about the pet vendor and where they're located, in state or not. So, in a sense, what this would do, wouldn't it, is unless we change those to 50, would say that somebody who's now a pet vendor could do up to 50 instead of up to 30. So, and be a residential and not have to be a vendor. So I didn't know whether that needed to be some clarification about what's intended there.
Thank you for the question. As I indicated, my initial thought was that we were exempting, which that's not what it's doing. But in the discussion, I think what probably needs to be added here is a clear exemption from the requirements of the rules relative to, as was said, you have to have non-permeable surfaces, that have to be all these things. And I think the intent is here is to say, if you're going to do fewer than 50, you're exempt from those requirements. And we never know what the rules, when they get renumbered, what they're going to say. But I think there does need to be a clear exemption from the inspection requirements, because that was the thing we were trying to do, is not have the inspectors come into the home. But as I'm looking at this, I think without clarity in terms of the inspection requirements, we have created that problem. I think if we do that, we make them pet vendors subject to everything else except for those inspection requirements.
I think you're creating a conflict for rules then if you don't amend 437-1-4, because there you say a pet vendor is anybody who does over 30, and then it'll be the next one down that says a residential is up to 50. So anybody who's in between 30 and 50, are they a vendor or are they residential? And what do you want?
Well, I think just like we now have pet vendors who are animal shelters and pet vendors who are pet stores, I'm not sure that you need to go further in there. I leave that to you, but I do think there needs to be clarity on, because there can be levels of inspection and enforcement.
We can talk later. And I just,
Yeah.
maybe
I
misunderstood,
agree with
maybe
you
you're
that-
understanding, but it says in the statute 30, 30, 50, and now we're saying 50. So which are you if
Well,
you're between 30 and 50?
I believe you're still a pet vendor, but you wouldn't be subject to the same requirements of
Yeah.
others. And there's also very,
But
you know,
you
they're
better-
not
I just- if I
imported.
may interrupt, I think you better make that clear in 4 then, okay? Because
sure.
right now, it's an obvious conflict that it may be, what you could say in 4 is like, but reference to 6 or whatever, but I just, please take a look. Okay,
I'll be glad to do that and work with the sponsor of the bill on that.
Senator Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A previous speaker, and I'm paraphrasing here, said that the department was not able to enforce the rules consistently because of a lack of resources. And so my question is, are we approaching this kind of ass backwards and changing statute because we haven't given you enough resources when maybe we need more resources at the department and we don't need to change these definitions?
I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. Regardless of this, we need more resources, which we're not going to get. But I think, oh, I keep having resources taken away all the time, so I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get more. So I would say that, again, because of the residential nature, non-importation of the animals here, and the desire to allow them to do this into the homes, we certainly need to have some different inspection standards and having a different definition for those who fit this definition. You know, these are not the people who are really taxing our time, so having more resources wouldn't really change this here because, you know, I don't think that there's anything wrong with people being residential breeders. And if they're registered for pet vendors and they're putting in their certificates and following everything else, yeah, it's not reasonable for us to make them have everything be essentially, you know, stainless steel or plastic in their house. You know, I don't know what else to say, but I do think this needs some more clarity.
Thank you.
Senator Pearl?
No, I'm gonna let go. I'll
All right.
talk with the commissioner.
Commissioner, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to close the hearing and wait for the prime sponsor of the next bill as he reverses. And now, if anybody hasn't signed up, they're not going to be able to speak because we're going to be kicked out in 45 minutes. And so I'm going to try to limit testimony to about 3 minutes apiece, if that's okay, because we have a lot of people here. And with that, Senator Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is Senator Howard Burrell from District 17. I live in the town of Loudon. I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 442. So this bill came at a request from the commissioner, and essentially he wanted to level the playing field as he stated to me about health certificate transfers and make sure that, because currently there's an exemption for shelters who have animals that are procured from in-state about having these health certificates. I'm going to let him do a lot of the explanation on it. There's a secondary thing that this bill does, is it makes some cleanups in statute from back when we put the database in place. We had 2 different sets of language relating to certificate of transfer, sort of one pre-database and one post, and during the drafting of this bill, OLS pointed that out to us, and so we also made some cleanups on language within this bill. I recognize, the thing I will say, I think this bill probably needs a bit more work. I recognize that there's some challenges for the rescues in complying with this. We have we're gonna have a good conversation on it as we need to. We certainly want to make sure that, you know, we're trying, the thing all day we've talked about is trying to get things to, everybody on the same playing field and trying to work the same way. But at the same time, we're also trying to tailor it to fit the needs of the communities as well as the rescues and the residential breeders. That's been our theme all day long of the bills. So let's look at this bill, let's have the conversation and decide how we want to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Waters?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator. So could you just look quickly down on line 27, the first page? And you'll see where, you know, it's under health food for dog, cats, and ferrets.
Yeah.
And then you see, I just wonder if it's a mistaken strikeout. No animal shelter should transfer any dog, cat,
The
or
ferret being struck out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an oversight. If you look,
You
there
want
is an
ferret in
amendment
there.
that puts that back, and it also
Okay.
puts back the requirement for rabies certificates. There was a couple of errors in the original.
I just wanted to
Yes.
take care of the ferrets. All right.
Yeah, we'll take care of the ferrets.
And so then, my larger question is, I
Yeah.
mean, you're gonna keep working on it, so I won't go into all of it. I certainly have heard, from a lot of, folks that this might inadvertently greatly reduce the number of, pet transfers that it could take place, and that's a real issue, for a lot of them in terms of expense.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that as you're working on an amendment.
Well, one of the things is, and again, I brought the rescues right in the beginning of this and said,
Yeah.
hey, let's look at this and let's talk about it. I said, I brought this at the request of the commissioner and I did so because I'm willing to work on it. You know, he had a request and generally we try to work with the
Yeah,
departments and,
good.
and I brought in the rescues as well because I wanted them, I like to sit people down at the table and try and craft a good piece of legislation if we can. And I do recognize that there may be a significant financial burden to them and we did have, and I think the commissioner can touch on this if he chooses, we did have some follow-up conversations about perhaps changing the time, excuse me, the time that the health certificates are valid. You know, we went there 14 days, we looked at going to 30, and we had some good discussions based on this. So, you know, even if nothing comes of this legislation, we're having good discussions and we're looking at problems that that are there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. No further
You're welcome.
questions. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Sean Jasper. The simple thing, and I am referring to the amendment because the bill was very confusing. So if you do have the amendment, which is 2026-0120, yes, that's what I would be speaking to. You know, when we change things, sometimes we don't catch everything in law. So the simple part is changing health certificates to official certificates of transfer, we refer to as OCTs. What we believe is that every person who receives an animal from a pet vendor, regardless of the category, whether that be a residential breeder or a rescue, they should have a certificate from a veterinarian saying that the animal is healthy, and the state should be aware of the fact that that transfer is taking place. And that's the primary purpose of this. The language about requiring them to have microchip scanner, inspect for tattoos, all of those things have been in statute, and certainly that could be revisited. But I think it's hard to argue with the fact that people who are receiving, and frankly, whether you want to call it donation or not, it's not an insignificant amount of money. And the very least that I think that people should be doing is have that certificate that a veterinarian has said this animal is well enough to be transferred. That will cost money. I've heard, you know, that could be $40,000 for some organizations. But we already have a number of our animal shelters who are doing this for every animal anyhow, and we're getting records of that. So I think it is not just, it's not really a leveling the playing field. This is consumer protection. They're paying a lot of money for these animals, and you know, I think if you add a small amount, if they add a small amount onto the donation that's required, then that covers that. That gives them some peace of mind, and it also allows that to go into the database. As Senator Pearl said, we've talked about what's the right number for the certificate to be valid for. I think, and we think that that could be lengthened, because that is a problem. An animal's expected to be transferred, something goes wrong and it isn't, now you need a new veterinarian inspection. That could certainly be lengthened, and I don't have I think we ended up at like 3 weeks.
I apologize, I don't remember.
Yeah, we can get that easily, but we did have discussions with the state veterinarian about what was a reasonable number, and we did come up with a higher number than what is currently required. So that's pretty much what we do, and I do feel strongly about making sure that people have that veterinary inspection before they receive an animal from anywhere in the state.
I think Senator Waters had a question first.
Can I speak to just 1 minute real quick? I'm sorry. I found in my notes here real quick, Commissioner, we had discussed 30 days and I think we did land back at 21 days because there was concern from your state vet that there was issues with going out to 30.
Right, and I think it's currently 14 days.
It is 14
Yeah,
currently.
so this
Thank you.
adds a week to that.
Senator Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is again around the quarantine issue. I am on the amendment. I see that, and the parents are taking care of the amendment. Thank you. But previously had been quarantined for animals from out of state. Now you're saying in-state animals, and I have heard about real concerns about that for for this. And I'm wondering if you would comment more. I mean, this is one facility in Dover that says it's going to be $44,000 a year more for the quarantine requirements alone. So anyways, I think can you see any differentiation between animals from out of state and then animals from in-state where there's incidences of certain disease like ringworm or whatever is a lot less? And anyways, but you commented that most shelters are already doing a quarantine. Is that for in-state animals?
No, well, so the quarantines are for the imported animals, and that doesn't change. That doesn't change for this. It's the requirements of 437.86, or excuse me. The quarantines only apply to the animals who are imported into the state, and that would not change.
So if I may just follow up, but you're striking that as imported from outside of the state in the amendment, lines 7 and 8. So does 437, I can look it up, 8 and 5 specify that it's only out of state?
The reason that that's stricken is because this would now apply to all animals, not just those that are received from outside of the state. The quarantine requirements would apply just to animals that have been received from outside of the state. And I think, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak to that, but I think all animals imported are required to be quarantined, but I may be wrong about that. But from outside of the state, but it's not necessary here because of the underlying changes that are being proposed.
I'll check. Thank you.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I think I'm reading this language the same way as Senator Waters, because you're in striking that is imported or received from outside of the state. It now says no animal shelter shall transfer any dog, cat, or ferret until the quarantine requirements in 437:8 Roman 5 have been met.
And
so it's expanding.
Well, I think we have to go to 437.8.5, and I think that's specific. I don't think that pulls everybody in, and I don't have that in front of me. And so that's the thing you have to look at. What exactly does it say? And I believe that it was drafted this way because I believe the language right now, yeah, I have to look at that. I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think it's any longer necessary with the underlying changes.
I agree that the drafting, I don't like the way OLS drafted this, but the commissioner is right. What this does is it removes it just simply removes the exemption for transferring animals, the certificate of transfer, excuse me, for in-state animals. And they made it very complicated in the way they drafted it, but certainly review it and take a peek. And I did, and it appeared to me to do that, yes.
Okay.
If I may, if I may on that, I think you want to keep, for clarity's sake, I've looked at 437, 8, and I think for clarity's sake, you don't want to strike that there. I think that would take care of the problem.
Okay.
Okay, but you can work on it.
Any further questions at this point? We may call you back. Don't go anywhere.
I won't.
He's leaving.
Not until my parking meter runs out.
Yeah. Hopefully you all have a copy of the amendment. That's going to need some work. So, are there copies for our customers? And with that, Kurt.
You can have this one back if you need it.
There you are. Yeah. Yeah, so knowing that this amendment is going to need some work as well.
Yeah, so I would say thank you for the amendment. I'm Kurt Ehrenberg. I'm the State Director of Humane World for Animals. Appreciate the time today. Due to the fact that there is an amendment that I haven't had a chance to look at, I will just say that we're concerned with this bill, the administrative burdens this bill places on nonprofit shelters, particularly regarding the shortened health certificate windows, will inadvertently hinder the adoption process and strain limited rescue resources. And that's the gist, I think, and I sent you some written testimony, and I appreciate the time.
Yeah, so if you can look at that amendment and send, email us, so, suggestions or concerns, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Unless there's questions. No, so no. Yeah, we're short on time, so I want to be fair. Charles? He's back. And do you have a copy of the amendment by any chance? Okay.
My bad. Charles Stanton, New Hampshire Humane Society, Animal Rights Foundation. I'm sure it's no surprise I oppose this bill. The vast majority of our animals come from our 19 municipal partners, so this bill adds massive administrative and financial burdens. It limits our ability to save lives and to be of service to our municipal partners and to the state. Should this pass, we will either have to drastically increase fees to municipal partners, or we will stop accepting animals from municipal partners and the state. We would have no other choice. As a reminder, we have 104 signatures from officers and chiefs, as well as letters from chiefs indicating how essential our services are to their police departments. I appreciate the work and expertise of the Department of Agriculture. It has just been acknowledged that there is a lack of staff power, budget, and infrastructure to respond to the things they are already monitoring. I'm also aware the review of health certificates has been at times in previous years up to 2 years behind. It makes no sense to more than double that workload while also increasing the weight we already carry for you. Support of our life-saving work with legislation informed by a new master plan would be imperative. This bill will absolutely force us to withdraw services from our 19 municipalities and the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Charles. So, and you feel the same way, even though we have the amendment in front of you?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Patricia Morris again. I think she left though, right? She just left. Yeah. Yep, that's a no. Yeah, that's a no. And did Diane Richardson leave? Oh, she did. Yeah, she did. She didn't want to speak on this. Yeah. Michael? And I'll ask you if you have the amendment as well.
I do not have the amendment. I'm going to read what I have, and if there's any changes, I'll send an addendum.
And keep in mind, we're going to get kicked out.
I'll be
in a
quick.
little bit. Yeah.
My name is Michael Constance. I serve as the Executive Director of the Friends of the Manchester Animal Shelter. I'm here to respectfully oppose SB 442. This bill removes long-standing exemption shelters currently have for in-state animals and requires official health certificate for every transfer. At present, we're only required to obtain certificates for animals arriving out of state. 100% of the animals we care for come from the Manchester residents or strays in our own community. 99% of our adopters are from New Hampshire. Shelters are not pet vendors. We are not breeders or retail operations. We are nonprofit organizations providing a public service. We take in abandoned animals, cruelty cases, strays. We operate on donations and limited municipal support. Treating shelters the same as commercial sellers ignores that distinction. If passed, this bill would impose significant financial and operational burdens. Health certificates are only valid for 14 days. If an animal is not adopted within that window, it must be re-examined. That cycle would continue every 2 weeks. Our average length of stay in the 2025 year was 49.63 days. That means the average animal that comes to the Manchester Animal Shelter will need to be tested and issued a new certificate up to 3 or 4 times during his stay if they are adoptable. This could add to an additional $71,966.20 in additional testing alone. This does not count for the staff time that will be wasted doing menial tasks. Our animals will also sit for far longer in the shelter, increasing fear, anxiety, and stress. For a small shelter, this will mean thousands of dollars in new veterinary fees and substantial staff times spent coordinating paperwork instead of caring for animals. There's also a serious concern about how this bill could be interpreted. The language is vague, and if applied rigidly, it could negatively impact cats who test positive for feline immunodeficiency virus. FIV positive cats can live long, healthy, normal lives in adoptive homes. They are not a public health risk. Yet, if this bill results in overly restricted interpretations around infectious disease protections, it may unintentionally condemn adoptable FIV cats to euthanasia. Today, I brought a photo of Crayon with our feline coordinator, Jody. Crayon is an FIV positive cat that lives freely in our community cat room alongside other FIV positive cats. He's not kept in a cage. He socializes, plays, enjoys affection. Just like any other cat in care, he is healthy and thriving. He is not alone. Diego, Meek Mill, and Scotty are also FIP positive cats who live in our community room and are healthy and adoptable. Cats like these are living proof that feline immunodeficiency virus is manageable, not a barrier to a full and happy life. Legislation that is vague or overly broad should not create unintended consequences that place cats like them at risk. This bill is described as a regulatory streamlining. In practice, it feels like unnecessary Massachusetts-style expansion of government regulation into nonprofit community work. It adds costs, adds bureaucracy, and does not improve animal welfare or public health. We all share the same goal, protecting animals and the public. This bill does not advance that goal. It creates burdens without meaningful benefit and carries unintended consequences. I respectfully ask you to recommend this bill. It's inexpedient to legislate. Thank you for your time.
Senator Pearl with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Hey, Michael, thanks for coming in. If we were to extend the transfer certificate, the official transfer certificate to 21 days, would that alleviate some of the concerns that you would have, giving you that larger window of time?
Slightly. We operate a little bit differently than other shelters. A lot of our animals they need a lot of work involved. And some animals, you get that one adopter, that's the only adopter that's going to exist. And if we wait too long or take too long because we need to do another certificate, wait for testing to come in, that could negatively impact the animal. So it would help a little bit, but it's still adding more work for us.
But all of your animals are going through veterinary care and veterinary supervision anyway. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out the right path here. So thank you for your.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Appreciate it. Karen? You can leave it up there. We like her.
Hi again, Karen Fugit from Pope Memorial Humane Society in Dover, and on behalf of the New Hampshire Federation for Humane Organizations, I'm here to respectfully oppose SB 442. I won't reiterate what's already been said. I will just say that this past year, 2025, 88% of our animals were local animals, strays, owner surrenders from our communities that we have contracts with. And I know Dr. Proctor will speak more to the financial burden that providing health certificates every 14 days for those animals will have on our shelter, but it would be significant. Not only that, it would be a burden to our staff who could be caring for other animals instead of entering health certificates. We do all of our due diligence anyway. We do regular exams. We do outgoing exams. So it's not always by a vet. It's by a member of our medical staff, so a certified veterinary technician. We do this the day of adoption before an animal can go home. We have stopped animals from going home because things are observed during the outgoing exam. It's just not something that's publicly reported to the state, but it's something that I know other shelters are doing. We're doing our due diligence already. So I would ask that you don't impose more of a burden on the organizations that are already doing the work.
So Senator Pearl's question to Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
Extending to 21 days, like Michael said, would help some of our animals to get adopted sooner, but when our average length of stay is closer to 30 days for some of our behavioral dogs, especially the strays that we really don't have history on and need to take the time to get to know. We're putting them through often, you know, the only vet care they've ever seen in their lives that we know of. We're spaying, we're neutering, we're going through their recovery process, we're doing behavioral modification. So often they're with us for far longer than the 21 days, so they would still be subject to 2 health certificates or.
So the commissioner's perspective basically is of consumer protection and
Sure.
whatnot, that there should be something there, right? So do
Well,
do
isn't
you have
there-
suggestions as far as?
Isn't there already the 14-day protection? So once someone adopts an animal, if their vet finds anything within 14 days that we didn't catch ourselves, they come back. We've had a few cases like orthopedic things that we didn't catch until an animal's really freely running and playing in the home, and we've brought animals back, we've done surgeries, and we've readopted them out. So I think that there is already something in place to protect adopters.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Oh, whoa. Don't go anywhere.
I just wanted to welcome you here from the great city of Dover, and
Thank you.
Pope is just a great facility and
Thank you.
operation you have there. So thanks
Well,
for being
we'd
here.
love to see you come over sometime.
I'll come back. I'll come back. I've been there. I'll
Excellent.
come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Savannah. And I'll ask you a question, if you've gotten the amendment as well. No,
I have not.
you've not. Okay.
It's right here though.
Yeah.
So I have it now.
So when you're speaking, if you could speak more to the amendment, because that's where we're most likely going to end up going. The underlining bill, is going to most likely change with the amendment. So it's,
Sure.
your testimony would be more relevant to the amendment than anything.
Sure. I thought it would be important to describe to the committee what already happens in terms of medical care. So animals that come from the state of New Hampshire, they receive the same intake process of medical care as animals from outside of our state. So they undergo a physical examination, vaccination, parasite control, diagnostics as indicated, and surgical sterilization prior to adoption. While locally sourced animals may not need a OCT or the official certificate of transfer under law right now, they are adopted with complete medical records documenting their care and health status. And these records provide adopters and veterinarians with, in my opinion, far more detail, clinical information than just a transfer certificate alone. So that OCT is kind of an additional step that we take for the out-of-state animals. Again, the out-of-state animals require the OCT, but they get the same stuff as the in-state animals. The resources that it would take would be exponential. Last year, in 2025, we admitted approximately 1,600 animals originating within New Hampshire. If we had to have an OCT for all of them, just the administration time, it takes about 20 minutes, I would say, give or take, for that OCT to be written in the system. We'd be looking at around 530 hours of additional administrative time only. And that's if the animal was adopted in the 14 days. Of course, like some of the other people have said, many animals are not staying for under 14 days in order to require additional exams and certificates to be completed. I have written testimony that I can provide you guys, but that is the synopsis. I think that just understanding kind of what the differentiation is and what these animals already get when they enter the New Hampshire SPCA, and probably many of the other shelters that are here today, is quite important.
If you can take that amendment with you, and then if you have further comments, please send it to Joshua, and he'll submit it to the committee. Are there any questions from the senators? Nope. Seeing none. Thank you very much, Savannah.
Thank you.
Sarah. I had to.
It's okay.
I was actually practicing that last night.
You knew I was coming. So I'm Sarah Proctor. I'm a veterinarian at the Pope Memorial Humane Society. I live in Deerfield. I've been a vet for 26 years, and I've been in sheltering for 15. So I would like to oppose this bill as it's amended. I guess that there's a couple of things I want to say that other people haven't said. But I can echo what Karen said and what Savannah said, and I can't remember who else spoke, about the burden that this would impose on us. And I think Commissioner Jasper said that there are some shelters already doing OCTs for every animal. The only one I know of is Salem Animal Rescue League, who's on the border of Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is the only state that I could find that requires an OCT for every transferred animal in a shelter. So I believe they're doing that because they have to abide by the Massachusetts rule because they're adopting to so many Massachusetts residents. But there's no other state in the country that I know of that requires an OCT for in-state animals. Massachusetts allows their OCTs to be valid for 180 days. So if you ask the other people, would 21 days help? Based on our numbers, I think that would capture, or that would alleviate a second OCT for about half of the ones that we would now need to create one for. So, so some benefit, but it's still going to require us about 400 to 500 animals would need an OCT. There's also talk about consumer protection and how do we ensure that the consumer is getting a good product when they buy an animal from us. The OCT for breeders is important because a breeder otherwise has nothing forcing them to have an animal examined by a vet. For transfer animals or imported animals, they come from mostly the southern US where disease rates are higher. Their resources are low. So they come to us with a lot of disease, and we often catch that in the 48-hour quarantine, and if not then at the OCT exam. So I think that's valuable to have OCTs for imported animals. But our local animals are a different population. Their disease rates are a lot lower, in my experience. And if we're talking about consumer protection and ensuring that animals are examined by a vet, there's very few animals that come through my shelter that don't see me. The strays all need rabies vaccines. They often need spay-neuter surgery, so I'm putting my hands on them. If anything is identified by my technician team, they come to me for an exam. So the only ones that I don't put hands on are animals that come into the shelter with documented vet records from a local vet. You know, they were seen somewhere in Dover. They're up to date on vaccines. They're up to date on preventative care. They've been deemed healthy by a local vet. I'm comfortable not seeing them because somebody else that I probably know has seen them and said they're healthy. So I feel like the regulation is ensuring that the Department of Ag knows that vet hands are being put on these animals. But I think I don't think it's actually benefiting the consumer. It's not making the animals healthier. We already have systems in place to ensure that they're getting veterinary care and the OCT is an added burden to that. And if there is any needed benefit to data collection at the state level, there's a lot less onerous ways to do it. Most of the shelters I know and work with have centralized databases that, you know, we could even point to. There's a website called Shelter Animals Count that most of us submit all of our intake and outtake information to, and it's publicly available. So I believe you can go onto this website and see how many animals we transferred and whether they were owner surrendered or strays or et cetera. So there might be other ways to collect that data if that's an important part of the background of this.
Senator?
Thank you. So that actually spurs a question for me. If you're entering this data in, is it that similar or the same data that would go into a transfer, certificate transfer?
No,
What
it's
type of
a data
information?
point, like how many animals did you adopt that were owner surrenders? How many? So you can get a count of. It's not individualized animal information like an OCT would be. But if the department is looking for, you know, counts of how many animals of this or that, the website would give you that. But no, it won't tell you what the dog's microchip number was or what his temperature was.
All right, thank you for that clarity.
Does it cover birth defects too?
The
OCT, or it's just?
No, so the OCT, that's the other issue I have with it, is that it only requires that I sign saying the animal is free from infection, contagion infection. So if an animal has arthritis or heart disease or birth defect, I sometimes write it on there, but it's not legally required.
Okay.
So I'm only saying that this dog has no infections today, and it doesn't really say anything else. So it's valuable if it's a way to force vet hands onto an animal, like a breeder or a transfer animal, an import animal. But for these local animals, I just don't see any benefit to somebody who's going to adopt the animal.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Right.
Often, if an animal, I sign an animal this afternoon, if I sign an OCT, if it starts sneezing tomorrow, it's still got its OCT. And my staff knows to pull that animal off the floor until I can see it again. But it's just a moment in time that I'm saying that this animal is not sick. And that's a limitation to the health certificate that we acknowledge, but it's again, a limitation to protecting the consumer.
Seeing no further questions, well done. Thank you very much. Are there any more questions for the commission? Or are we all set? You are free to go. I think that's it. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. And I have nobody else wanting to speak, and that's okay because we only have 10 minutes to get out of here. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing. Thank you, everybody. And if you have questions, please send them to the committee. We love your suggestions. So with that, the hearing is now closed.